Is it our mind, our hearts, or our diddle parts?
Hello and welcome to the Temple of the Gods, also known as the Netflix waiting room. Please mind our dust, as this temple has been under construction for about 2 years, but the doors are finally open. Please step inside and feel free to finally hang up your clown nose for the last time before you head on in. Who are we kidding though? Those babies are sticking with us for life. Clowns until the end. Let's see what's in the circus tent for today. I'm Ovs, and I'm currently joined by Lecky. Beans, you're physically here. I think you're mentally still waking up with the world.
Yeah.
She's gathering her strength. Veg is joining us soon, but oh my gosh, already so much is happening. So as we're recording this, it's just a few minutes before the trailer is going to drop. If I'm talking really fast, it's because I'm really excited. Lecky, I don't know about you, but last time we did an episode like this, it was for the Next on Netflix event,
right,
when we didn't know what we were getting, and we were so
nervous,
sick with dread.
Yeah.
How are you feeling? I feel a lot better today. I'm ready.
I do too. I think having been through this many times before and also having had many sleepless nights recently. Luckily, I did sleep a little bit last night, but I feel like I'm going into this a little more zen, probably just because I'm so tired.
You're so tired. How much sleep did you get for the doubling episode? I got 90 minutes.
1 hour?
You got 1 hour, I got 90 minutes.
Yeah.
So really, I should be very sprightly.
Yeah.
But Lecky, before we jump in, what is going on so far?
We have received some stills with some metadata. I'll tell you, we were blown away by these stills.
What a hot air balloon.
It looks like there's a hot air balloon involved somewhere in episode 3. It's going to be so exciting.
We will get into the stills later. We will get to it. But yes, we have a few stills. So just from memory, we have from episode 3, bearing in mind it's called Forces of Nature, Extraordinary Novelty, the Hawking's Balloon, and it's the Ton arriving at some kind of fair for this extraordinary balloon. You can see Pen is in the same dress as she was wearing in that Debling Handsy still, when we were like, she's clearly worried about something.
Yeah.
He's reacting to something. We speculated it could be a swan, but behind Penelope, who looks to be looking for Lord Debling actually, behind Penelope is strolling one Mr. Pirate Colin Bridgerton. He is in full piratey force. Welcome back to the podcast. We've missed you.
Yeah.
And he's behind her. You know what? The rest of the Bridgertons are there as well. So you can see Benedict. I think you can see Greg. You can definitely see Eloise, which is so tragic. She's just on Pen's shoulder. But Colin is looking straight up at the sky at this fucking balloon. And the minute I saw this, I was like, oh my God, he's going to get carried away by balloon. He's going, Forces of Nature. Think about it, Lecky. Forces of Nature. We were like, is it a rain dance? The boy is going to get carried away. I think what we have here is episode 3. We'll get into it more. Episode 3, Chaos Colin, post first kiss. We've also got stills of him in episode 2 with Penelope, a little bit more together. They're by each other's side.
They're at the market. Rosa Hesmondal, her lady's maid, is watching them from behind.
Yep, they're at the market together. We've also got, very, very quickly, Francesca next to Penelope's side at the Danbury Ball.
Wallflowers.
Wallflowers together. And there's all other manner of stills, including a little bit of Greg with his big brothers, and we will get into that soon. But the final countdown is on. Veg is still not here. I cannot believe it. Where the hell is she? Also, last minute things. What do you want to see? I want to see Polin first meeting. I want to see baby Polin.
Well, I think we're going to get like a near kiss moment, and that's going to kill me.
Beans?
I don't know.
She's present.
It's too early for you.
She is present and seated.
Veg, you've just joined us.
Hello.
Welcome. Open up the YouTube. Let's see what's going to happen.
Okay. 2 minutes, 40 seconds.
Oh my God, I'm so stressed. 2 years, guys. 2 years. Also, what an honor. Just want to say, it's been a journey.
Oh my God. Can you believe we're actually here?
No.
Forget what I said about beans, and I'm getting really nervous now.
Too much is going on.
Okay.
Good luck, guys. Oh my God, guys. It's 2 o'clock.
It's on. It's on.
He's in the garage.
She's so pretty. Oh, fuck. It is Eloise and Cressida.
Yes, you called it, Bean.
Oh my God.
Fuck off.
Why is he
Oh,
kissing
no.
another lady's hand?
Oh, you little shithead.
Excuse me?
You little shit. Get in the bin.
Oh.
You little... Oh, no, stay outside of the bin.
Enhance.
Splendid.
Yeah. Oh, he's starting to lose his mind now.
Longing glances.
Oh, he's going insane.
Oh.
Colin's asking if the best relationship of his friendship. He said if that's the best love, it's where. Oh God, he loves it. Oh God. Oh, he's sweet, isn't he, really?
Not the only gems that sparkle. And there's the emerald.
Yes,
there we
there
fucking
she is.
go.
Oh
my God. Lord Wilding laughs at her.
Lord Wilding, we had so much trust in you as well.
Oh my God, Violet, she getting plowed. Her garden is getting tended too. Ooh.
Vanity Fair article has dropped. Bridgerton season 3 introduces a surprising new friendship.
Yeah, for sure.
Surprising to some people.
Unless your name is Beans McBeanslet. With Penelope and Eloise on the outs, resident Queen Bee Cressida gets an expanded role in the new season. Bosom buddies Penelope Featherington and Eloise Bridgerton are still estranged, but out of the ashes of their relationship rises a new alliance between Eloise and none other than Cressida Cowper, who was once a shared enemy of the former friends. So Jess Brownell in this article is talking about their strange bedfellows friendship. And she says Eloise enters this season having lost a little bit of her fight, at least temporarily. And you can see that in her. Do you know when a part of you is so wounded, you just sort of shut down and you're like, fine, I'll just go along with what happens to me. Instead of being the action in my life, I'll just be passive in this moment. But Jess continued, there's a little feeling of, if you can't beat them, join them. When we were talking about who would be interesting to pair Eloise with in terms of understanding how different she's feeling this year without Penelope by her side, Cressida made a lot of sense. But this is an opportunity to get to know Cressida a little bit more. I love a mean girl character, but even more, I love understanding why a mean girl is a mean girl, because mean girls are not born, they're made. She's been the queen bee all along, but 3 years in without a husband, I think there's room for reflection with her. You're going to see some new sides from her this year and understand the way she is. I said this before, and none of you have read the fucking books. Princess Diaries, forget the movie.
I've read the Princess Diaries. I'm well aware of Mia becoming friends with Lana.
Oh, because sorry, you have this exact storyline where a friendship breaks up, they turn to someone who's always been the enemy, and then you find you have common ground, and you get to kind of know them a little bit. But Benofi fans will be very interested to learn that the new season will feature a glimpse into Cressida's home life. Do you think they're setting these up as the new foil for the Bridgertons once the Featheringtons leave?
Yeah.
Yes, 100%.
So we're going to see a little bit more of Cressida's home life and how she's competing against Penelope. Oh, this is interesting, guys. She's competing against Penelope for the affections of Lord Debling.
Oh.
I was going to say she's in the background watching Debling and Penelope in one of the trailer moments.
Oh my god, no way.
Even though Cressida this year is trying her best to be less of a mean girl, this is interesting. She can't help but subconsciously want to go after the same guy Penelope is going after. It puts the two of them on a collision course. It was really fun to play out.
Oh, I wonder if that will be revisited again later in the season when she's with Colin.
So Cressida's trying to be nicer, but she can't help it because her and Pen are going for the same guy.
Yeah.
Interesting. And then to summarise the rest of the article, it was pointed out that the Lady Whistledown of it all continues to be a burden between the reconciliation of Pen and Eloise. And Brownell says Eloise knows a secret, and as soon as one person knows, I think it gets harder and harder to keep the secret. So it's definitely pressure that is playing on Penelope this year. There we go. Interesting. We'll definitely delve more into the Cressida of it all a bit later. But Lecky, anything else that's popping up?
One extra crumb we've received today is actually the new poster for season 3, which we are pretty certain is going to be the cover for the book tie-in. Sadly, we don't have time to discuss it here today in detail, but as suspected, Amira is center stage with Penelope looking at her reflection as Colin stands a little further behind, watching her. As we speculated, they are both wearing the same costumes we've seen in recent promo and are now familiar with, but welcome to the world, book cover Polin.
Hello everyone, welcome back. It is a little bit later. It's been an hour and a half, 2.5 hours.
Time no longer exists to me.
When I say we've been like in a bunker going through this second by second, it's been chaos. I'm very, very, very tired. So if it sounds less than enthusiastic, it's just because our brains have been working and we've been typing and we've been Googling everything we possibly can.
And I've been up since 5 a.m. So
It's just our day, isn't it? It's just the day we've been preparing for.
I cried.
Oh.
It did feel like we'd been training for this for months and then we were suddenly be thrown in.
But remarkably unprepared.
Charithra, she compared Edwina's journey to like being in the Super Bowl. Like that was her Super Bowl this season. This was our Super Bowl.
Yeah, the other 39 episodes were just us gearing up for this at the moment.
And the show itself is the Olympics.
So you've obviously heard our in the moment reaction. It was a bit chaotic. We had tech difficulties. Everyone had tech difficulties. That's the Mercury retrograde for you though. But here we are. We've gone through frame by frame by frame to try and unpick as much as we can. What I will say is this is still our first in the moment reaction. What we're going to do today is try and break it down a little bit, go through it.
I'm sure we'll spend the next month talking about this, but yeah.
Yeah, we've got plenty of time. We're just going to like pick out things that are interesting to us immediately, like expressions, locations, story beats, things like that.
Paintings.
But a lot is going on. Shall we just jump into the trailer? This is what we've been waiting for months. I'm just glad it's out because having it hanging over our heads was a bit stressful and I wasn't able to have social life because I didn't know what night anything was going to happen.
We couldn't make any plans.
Veg, we can go to the theatre together now. So let us start. We have the voiceover from Whistledown. These are familiar words because these are the words that were from Tudum.
Dearest gentle reader, We have been apart for far too long. At last, London's fashionable set has made its return.
And then a new line.
And it seems our bon ton is moving with the changing tide.
As we have the opening lines from Whistledown, we see some establishing shots, so the Queen's throne being put in place. We open into a ballroom. Lecky, this is a very familiar ball to us. I think we were just talking about it in a very recent episode.
Yes.
Where are we?
This is the Red Ball that we believe is hosted by the Queen, the one with the broken columns that we first glimpsed in the This Morning leaks back in 2023.
So as we pan down the dancers, you can see a little Francesca Bridgerton dancing with a man. And right at the end, you can see Violet keeping a watchful eye on her daughter. So we think this is episode 4, perhaps?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it takes a while to hook up with John.
And buckle in, guys. Get your outfits ready because we'll be returning to this ball quite a few times in the trailer. It feels like this is a significant ball. A lot is going to go on for a lot of people, so keep your eyes peeled. But... ahoy there, matey, the moment we've all been waiting for. Podcasting hosts are united in their glee. Colin Bridgerton is back from fucking about on the continent. And I say that affectionately because I do nothing but fuck about on the continent as well, babe. I feel you.
How lovely to see the ship beside the carriage as he trundles past.
Docks.
Can you believe we can actually see the ship?
Little glimpse of Pirate Colin departing his life of piracy.
So he's leaving his piracy behind. He's in a carriage. We're wondering if this is a hired hack. You can't really tell. It doesn't quite look like the Bridgerton carriage.
Yeah.
But you can definitely tell he's on his way home from his travels because not only is he looking very piratey, like you say, there's a massive fucking ship, which will generally, tick the box. And he's got all of his lovely luggage with him. Hopefully, you've been journaling, boy. I hope those trunks are full of thoughts of Penelope. Thank you very much.
And necklaces.
I do think it's a hired hack because when he approaches the Bridgerton house, they're all like, is that Colin Bridgerton? Mm-hmm. So I don't think they know that he was coming home.
Yeah, when they're leaving for the presentation, they all look surprised by his arrival.
Mm-hmm. We did hope it was going to be a horse as well. So I guess this confirms it isn't a horse, which is sad.
We've always wondered what his motivation for coming home would be. It coincides with him returning for Francesca, as we'll see, and as we've seen in many, many leaks. But Beans, it's a good point that maybe he didn't send word ahead that he was on the horizon and they'd taken aback. He was supposed to be away a lot longer, which is interesting because maybe that's one of the motivations that Penelope as well had is like, he's going to be away a really fucking long time anyway. Like, I haven't got Eloise. Just need to move on with my life. And then he appears and she isn't expecting him to. But our boy is back in London.
The boys are back in town.
And so are we. We then move to this absolutely gorgeous, gorgeous shot as the voiceover says,
we have been apart for far too long.
Penelope looking absolutely stunning in a nightgown in her bedroom with her hair down and loose.
Stunning.
If you actually look closely, this is Penelope's reflection we're looking at as she stares at herself in her mirror. We think it's probably her vanity dresser that she is sitting at. We've wondered if they would include moments like this throughout the season where we find Penelope in deep contemplation looking at her own reflection. This is how we find her in the opening of the trailer with her eyes ever so slightly narrowing into a frown as she searches her reflection.
And then we open to a garden party. This is familiar. Lecky, whose house is belonging to?
This appears to be the Livingston garden party that we first glimpsed in the stills that were released back in February. And Beans noticed something really interesting about the guests.
So we think this is 301, don't we, from that still? So Beans, what's going on?
Well, it looks like it's a white party. Everybody's dressed in white, and if you look down to the bottom of the screen, where in the center there is the orchestra playing, there's Lady Danbury with her cane walking up to the garden party in a white billowy dress and top hat.
There are some people in other colors, but I wonder if maybe just white is like the typical color scheme you would wear to an event like this.
It looks like mostly the women are in white and not their male counterparts.
Can I see a tiny little Benedict and Eloise in the corner over there?
Oh, maybe.
Oh, on the left.
Yeah, on the left by the hedge. By the hedge, of course, there's a fucking hedge.
So I think that Penelope and Eloise have that standoff at the Modiste, then they go to this garden party, and then she sees that Eloise is now chummy with Cressida, and it's that an additional blow.
Or it's exactly reversed. She sees Cressida and Eloise, and then they approach each other, like they both come in at the same time.
The reason I think the garden party is second is that it looks like Penelope is approaching Eloise to maybe, reconcile or something at the Modiste. And I feel like maybe after seeing her with Cressida, she wouldn't.
Maybe.
But let's go see what else is happening aside from this garden party, which again, we will be returning to.
So we have Francesca's presentation.
We do. So there she goes, looking absolutely lovely. She looks very like Daphne, doesn't she?
Yeah, she does.
Daphne and her on-screen mother.
Yeah.
The casting is just always so impeccable. I'm always blown away by it.
And the Queen looks quite satisfied as well. Like, she looks like she's admiring Francesca's look in a similar way she did to Daphne as well.
Yeah, she's kind of like another Bridgerton daughter.
A+.
Quick win.
Yeah, that narrative, which is a lot of pressure for Francesca, though, probably to be seen as perfect, has a lot of weight to it, which Daphne embodied very well and handled very well. But Fran, we see, is a very different character.
But even Eloise suffered with that. The previous season, she said it was hard to measure up to Daphne.
Yeah, just to touch on very quickly the still that we saw of Francesca and Penelope, it seems like she's more inclined to be a wallflower.
Yeah, because that's another event that takes place in this episode, is that Four Seasons Ball, which you could see in the still, it actually says Four Seasons Ball.
On their dance cards.
Yeah, and so it's nice that they had this moment where, you know, you have Francesca stepping into society. The first episode is called Out of the Shadows, and you have these different characters grappling with that concept. But the Queen's happy, and you know who else is happy?
Cantony.
There they are, looking very, very loved up. An extension from that still that we received at Christmas of the two of them together. Happy life treating you both well, I see. And then another top couple of the ton, we have our Mondriches reading an intriguing letter that I think Nick and Newts alluded to in the live stream. They're in the Mondriches bar. So are they getting a little letter to say they're inheriting an estate, perhaps?
Yes, and interestingly, Will looks very pleased, but Alice just looks kind of concerned.
Yeah.
And in the live stream, Luke Newton referred to the Mondriches as Colin's good friends. So we're definitely going to see that relationship blooming, which we're all big fans of the Mondriches. I think he needs a guiding light in his life by the name of Will and Alice.
Also, later on in the trailer, I think we can see Colin talking to what looks like it might be Will and Alice in a ball later on.
At the stool party.
Yeah.
So keep an eye out. And you know what we're keeping an eye out for? Oh, beans. How's your victory parade? You've taken no joy in this, have you, being the prophet of doom? You are Cassandra in Troy, telling us again and again, and we haven't listened. But here we are because, of course, we see Cressida and Eloise. We talked about it earlier. There was the Vanity Fair article and the Vanity Fair still, which we discussed a little bit in more detail. But here we see the relationship in tragically full bloom.
I think you underestimate how much I do enjoy this. I love to gloat.
I have to say, it looks like their friendship is also progressing because Eloise's muff looks very like Cressida coated, though also I think they're using it to cleverly hide Claudia's cast at the time because her arm was broken. But if you see that Cressida is holding this like very fluffy, I don't even know what that is. Like, is that her reticule?
There's something going on there.
Maybe a really fluffy fan, and then Eloise has this really fluffy muff or whatever that kind of matches it.
Very peacocky.
Yeah. So I think we talked about earlier how Cressida is in her third year and she needs to get a husband. She's got a lot of pressure at home.
Yeah, that was new, that confirmation.
It was also really interesting that they touched on in the interview today that Cressida's actions are motivated a lot by her insecurity. So that I think we'll be seeing more dimension to Cressida this season.
And she said she was trying to get away from the mean girl a little bit.
Yeah, but she almost can't help it.
But she still wants to get her pen. Lecky, a quick note on Eloise's outfit before we move. Do you know how you're saying she's slightly moving over to the Cressida side?
Yeah.
You've got her in a combination of Eloise mint green, which is a colour that she's had since she was a tiny little kid in the Edmund death scene.
Yes, and the pink dress.
I don't know that we've seen her in a dress like this, maybe once or twice at a themed ball, but heartbreaking for everyone. And you know who it's most heartbreaking for?
Penelope.
Well, it's interesting that it seems like in this half they're talking about Cressida being nicer, but if we do think she's going to be part of the Lady Whistledown blackmail plot, it's like, what's going to turn her? Is it going to be this connection to Debbling that's been hinted at?
This is the interesting one, yeah.
It could be tapping into kind of this season 1 conflict where Cressida was very upset when Daphne stole the prince from her when she had another love interest. And we have Penelope pursuing Lord Debbling that we now know Cressida will already be pursuing. And then at some point, Penelope is going to throw over Lord Debbling for Colin. So it might and maybe Lord Debbling decides to remove himself from the ton or is not interested in courting for the rest of the season if he does stick around. So that's another suitor who has been taken from her.
Yeah, and if she is having a negative experience at home, you can understand the pressure building on her to... it's one of those things, isn't it? Ultimately, you don't want to remember that your bully is a human being because they've made your life hell.
Right.
but everyone has complexity.
I was also thinking that it's really interesting that they're exploring Cressida more this season, especially if Ben's season might be next, because we think that family may be an antagonist in Ben and Sophie's love story. And I also feel like maybe they're setting up her eventual redemption. If Cressida does some awful things in this season and maybe in next season, maybe they turn her into a composite character where they combined her and her sister. And so maybe at the end of season 4, she ends up helping Ben and Sophie's love story in some way.
Ooh, the duality. But if Cressida is being softer and trying to be a nicer person, which is what, brings Elle to her eventually, obviously she's got this long-standing antagonism with Pen, which brings out that nasty side of her that she can't quite resist.
Yeah.
How do you think we then go to a blackmail plot? Or is it someone else who's blackmailing her altogether? Are we going to be tricked into thinking it is her?
I still think she's blackmailing her.
I think it's Cressida. I think I think so. She snaps because another suitor has been taken from her.
Yeah.
Maybe even Eloise gives up their friendship at some point around then because maybe Cressida says something or does something to Penelope that even Eloise can't stand.
We also said before that we think that maybe Eloise would let slip to Cressida that Pen is Lady Whistledown. So, she's got the motive, she's got the weapon.
I think it could be that. I also think that Cressida may also want to elevate her status in the town because, as we know, Pen does write about Cressida in a way where people look down on them a little bit, even though they are like a notorious family in the town. And I wonder if she'll still take credit for it.
I also wonder if Cressida's motives trump even her newfound friendship with Eloise. At some point, she goes after Lady Whistledown, even if she knows it would reflect badly on the Bridgertons and, Eloise's beloved brother, because she can't resist.
Because she's trying to be nice. She's trying to be softer. And I wonder if maybe there's reconciliation between Pen and Eloise before the blackmail plot happens, and Cressida sees that and maybe thinks she's being played by Eloise. It says she's trying to be softer. It doesn't necessarily mean that she is succeeding in being softer.
It could also be that because of her friendship with Eloise, that she thinks that Eloise will support her actions.
Yeah.
And then it ends up backfiring and it kind of spitballs into the situation where she's alone again and against the Bridgertons and the rest of the town.
Yeah.
It's also like, if you imagine, obviously we're always on Pen's side because she is our hero, she's the person we love as a character, but if you put Penelope on the other side, and if you get into Cressida's mindset, so we're going to see the pressures she's facing at home, how difficult it is when she's constantly failing. We've always been on Penelope's side whenever Cressida has been dragged in Whistledown, because for a start, we're on Pen's side anyway because we love her, but also Cressida has been painted up until this point as an antagonist and as not a nice person, which makes her easy to turn more into a cartoon. But if Cressida is trying to be nice, and it's hard, and she's getting annoyed because Pen is after Debbling, and maybe she can even see that Pen isn't even 100% into Debbling, so it's even more frustrating. It's like, you don't even want this man. But then if Penelope, who's still hurt about Eloise, uses Whistledown to write something bad about Cressida, that normally we would have cheered her on and been like, yeah, be bitchy about her dresses, she deserves it. But actually we see the repercussions that has on Cressida's life, on her prospects, but then her home life. And it's like, this actually really affects Cressida personally. You can then understand, looking at it from like her perspective, how if she suddenly finds out who exactly this person is who's been ruining her life and making everything difficult, and also turns out to be the person who she's had an issue with for years.
Yeah, she'll feel compelled to react.
So you can understand why she might go so far. It's like, it's been you all the time who's made my life this fucking horrible, from Cressida's perspective, and then she lashes out. But the voiceover continues that it's not only the bon ton that is moving with the changing tide,
so too is this author.
As a very sad little Pen looks over at Cressida and Eloise. And Beans, you suggested that maybe, we don't know the exact timeline of the first day of this season, but if she's wanted to make it up with Eloise or reach out one last time, and then she sees this as like a definitive answer, or maybe she's already been to the Modise, or she runs into the Modise after this. This is like that final chapter closing for Pen and Eloise.
But that's not the only thing that's changing. It looks like Penelope's also changing her wardrobe.
Ding ding. Lecky, do you fancy going to the Modise for this?
Yeah.
So, same episode 301, we are at the Modise with Genevieve, and Penelope is standing
in a mirror
in her old Penelope dress from season 1. We saw it quite a few times, and Genevieve has her wrapped in what colour fabric?
Lilac. She's wrapping her in love.
I think it's very sweet. Yeah, we've spoken in a recent episode about how Pen has like a tiny little dash in the lesson scene of Lilac and how we see her journey to ending up head to toe lilac in that most recent promo that we saw.
So we think that Penelope is telling Jen about her plan here. She says that she can't be at home any longer. She's probably telling her about her plan to marry for the season, and that's why Genevieve is draping her in this fabric. And later in the trailer, she asks, she has a suitor in mind, and I'm assuming this also takes place during the same conversation. And also, if you peek towards the back,
who's there?
There's a little glimpse of Penn's new lady's maid, Rosa Hesmondhalgh, who pops up during this trailer quite a bit, actually.
She is indeed. So we haven't seen her speak yet, but we know she's there. We still don't know her name. In my head, she is now just called Rosa, so gonna have to do some readjusting.
She looks very invested in Penelope's journey and in the Polin love story this season.
Maybe she's like the female Dunwoody.
Yeah, maybe.
But you're right, Lecky. Penelope says, I cannot live at home any longer. I must take a husband. And it's said so heartbreakingly. And it's spliced between this moment, obviously, at her at the Modiste, and then Beans.
Pudding!
It's a prudent grape feeding.
Amazing.
He's jumping like...
Yeah, like a dog.
Yeah.
Oh.
It reminds me of the scene with Penelope in season 1 sitting on the floor, like playing with the dog, but yeah. Prudence is playing with her husband.
Oh, he's going to be good value.
You know what though? Prudence has like a happy little smirk on it. Do you think it is that thing where she likes having someone to push around and he's just so happy to be pushed around?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
One of my first crushes was this boy. We moved to the neighborhood at the same time, and we used to walk to school together every day and walk home. And for some reason, I thought the best way to show my affection to him was to kick his shins. And I think that's how Prudence loves. That being said, don't kick their shins.
No, don't do that. Love them.
I do think she loves him, though, because if you look just briefly at this still from the hot air balloon extravaganza or whatever they're calling it, she's wearing blue and lilac, and even the cutouts on her dress, there's like these geometric cutouts that almost look like hearts, and she's staring at him with this very happy in love expression. So I do think it's a loving marriage.
Aww.
And it's all about like the different expressions of love and the way different people love as well.
Yeah, she's kind of a ridiculous character. It makes sense that they would have this ridiculous marriage.
Beans, you're utterly enchanted by this display, but someone else...
Not so enchanted.
Pen is not too thrilled with the Prudent display, and she's also, I think they spliced it with a slightly different moment, possibly where she's just walking away from her sisters or her mother, but it's very clear that a home for Pen has got far too much for her and she's having to take action. And you know what, we've known that this is going to be the trajectory of the plot, but I think it's really sad because she sounds just so done, and it's like, what other position does she really have at the moment? So this search for a husband that she's undergoing, it isn't really done with this sort of exuberance. I'm so excited to begin this new chapter of my life. It's almost like all the other doors that she's dreamed about, her future with Colin, her future with Eloise as her friend by her side, and her world has got not only smaller, but she just has lost the light that made life at home so bearable. So she has no other option but to move out and to find a husband.
Right.
And Genevieve says, does my lady have a suitor in mind? Well, I'm sure she does.
Yes. Well, before they attend the garden party, it looks like Penelope steps outside, but it looks like the Featherington residence, and she's spying something interesting going on outside.
If you have been a crumbs clown for 2 years almost, you might recognise this exact scene. She was affectionately known as Nightmare Pen, which was a very, very blurry Penelope that we saw in the first couple of weeks of filming, spotted outside Ranger's house. So we suspected that there was going to be the scene in a square.
They filmed all the greenery, etc., in front of Ranger's house, but then I think they spliced in the backdrop of the Featherington residence behind her to show that they kind of live across the street from each other. So she is peering across the street at...
Dun, dun, dun. Well, you know what? My favourite character of all time is not Colin Bridgerton. It is those red gloves that he wears on his way home.
Yeah, same. Yeah.
Because, oh my word, so poor Pen, she peers across because he is home. Now, I just want to touch on that very quickly before we jump into the Colin of it all. We've often wondered, we thought Pen would watch him coming home, didn't we?
Yeah.
But I think our theory was always that she was going to be watching him from a window. Mm-hmm. But she's in the square watching him. If they don't dance in that fucking square to make amends for this awful moment, then what are we doing? Also, no Berkeley Square scene. Oh. Do you know what? Very few, obvious book-to-screen translations in the trailer, but I'm sure it's all in nuance.
We'll see how it goes. But yeah, we do get a close-up of the gloves, if it's any consolation for what follows next.
There's a couple of gloves. So a little dainty glove has been dropped on the floor. We can see the many, many skirts of some ladies of the ton. And you know what? a tragedy such as a drop glove, I know only one man who can swoop in to save the day. Hero Colin / pirate Colin.
Hero Colin is activated.
Here he is. That wonderful gloved hand reaches down to retrieve, bring to safety another glove. As we have exclamations from the Bridgerton family who have poured out onto the street of Bridgerton House on their way to the debut. Is that our brother? Before Violet says, Colin? Mm-hmm. So again, it sounds like they weren't expecting him. We thought that he was late and they were all waiting on him, but it sounds like he's just appeared out of the blue, which I know your romantic heart wants him to be back for Pen.
Well, I'm still hoping that is the case. But it would be interesting if instead of seeing the carriage roll up, they walk outside and they see him basically like surrounded by women. Like,
can you
know
even?
What I mean?
Is this like the tamer version of the European sex montage? I'll take this. I will take this.
This is the swagger that we were worried about. This is the side of it that we were concerned about.
Yes, this is the introduction of the swagger.
Here he is. If you want to see the absolute disintegration of a man's spirit, it's in this trailer.
Yeah.
Because we go from this is your like starting point of the swaggery Colin.
Yeah.
And we're going to watch how it completely breaks down for him.
Looking forward to it.
So, you know, I might have sworn at him when I saw this, but we forgive him because we know this is not going to last. But there he is. We'll touch on this very quickly. Has it slightly changed your ideas of what he's been up to on the continent? I still feel like this is Colin Bridgerton who flirted with half the ladies in London, as he said in season 1.
I did say I wanted to see a return of season 1 Colin, the charming Colin who's flirted with half of the ladies in London.
Because I think this is what he was like and we've never really seen it, but I don't know if this is like sex montage god of Europe, Colin Bridgerton. I think there is, you know, you can be a flirty gentleman, which is something that I think he straddles quite well.
I would say I am doubting it more after seeing the trailer.
Doubting the sex montage.
No, doubting virgin Colin.
Yeah, I'm fine with him. Yeah, he'll know his way around Pen's body at least.
And Colin leans forward, maintaining some very flirty eye contact with a lady of the ton as he places a kiss onto her gloved hand. Colin, no, is it?
It's her ungloved hand because she dropped her glove.
It's her ungloved hand and the fabric is just technically on her skin.
Don't you have to get married if you kiss someone's skin?
Well, honestly.
Well, I think he kisses through the glove.
Yeah, it's very like technical propriety.
Kind of a little shit.
Which is a funny little parallel because all of Pen's gloves are going to be technically gloved, but ungloved at the same time. Maybe he gets away with this, like, this is how we do it on the continent, I think you'll find. In war-torn France, this is just how we say hello.
Oh, God.
War-torn France. If you're not being shot in the face, you're kissing somebody on their ungloved hand.
You can do both at the same time, multitask. What is tragic before we move on from this scene about Colin's arrival? First of all, he's not by horse, which I think was just one of our little daydreams. You know, we lose many a dream, don't we, as you move through life?
Yeah.
Well, no, him petting the horse was a red herring. Him petting the horse was a red herring.
The ranger's horse. Yeah, the ranger's house leaks.
That's fine. The carriage has its own meanings behind it as well. He could be making contacts with a hired hack.
That was Luke just saying hello to the horse in the scene. I don't know.
You know what? Get the boy in a carriage. Get the foreshadowing from the second he appears on screen. I'm happy with that. That's not a problem. Also, though, no hat, Lecky. That was a wasted spiral for the two of us, wasn't it?
Yeah. To revisit what you were saying, though, it is possible when he looks over that he is looking directly at Pen instead of the Featherington house, though. We've talked about in our rewatch that I feel like almost he's drawn to her like a magnet, like she's the north on his compass. Yeah. So I feel like maybe he's doing this kind of display, kind of soaking in the attention of the girls enjoying his swagger. But then he feels Penelope and he's drawn towards her. Oh. So I feel like there's that undeniable connection there, even if he is acting kind of in this very swaggery manner.
Yeah.
What's truly brought him home?
The compass.
Yes.
What's so sad is because we originally thought that when he came home, it was just going to be this family scene, which obviously it still is. That element's there, but we didn't know there was going to be this component of him with the girls of the ton.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
And she's watching this.
So I feel like she's going to turn away, and that's going to be the first silent, cold shoulder moment, which is what leads him to approach her at the garden party, as we'll see later in the trailer.
I think it's also going to be a confirmation for her that she needs to move on.
Right,
yeah.
Exactly.
He's back, and this is what he does from her perspective, in this wounded perspective. He does gestures that don't mean anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If they did mean something, it wouldn't be her that he chose. But do you think he sees her before he kisses that girl's hand?
Oh, I hope not.
No, I think it's after.
Heartbreaking. But Colin, you'll redeem yourself in a little bit because you've got some beautiful longing glances in this. Thank you very much. But we are on our way to the presentation. We have wondered, would Colin just run in and have a shower? Would he change? We have our answers. Thank you very much. Changing rooms. There he is. We're doing a little bit of in the moment dressing and undressing. To be fair, once again, Colin dressing and undressing in a carriage. Get used to it.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a nice introduction to him as a romantic lead.
He looks hot. He looks hot.
He definitely does. And you're not the only one to notice he's got a little bit going on.
I know.
It's also a great example of his swaggeriness that he would just decide to change in the carriage on the way to the presentation. You know?
Confidence is sexy.
He's with all three of his brothers, changing on the way to the presentation because he's rocking up at the last minute.
Teasing him about his new appearance.
And Benedict says, "Brother, under what foreign sun did you apparently get so sturdy?"
That French war.
Sturdy is a word that we didn't know was going to be applied, but you know what? We're going to embrace it with splendid, astonishing, remarkable. He's also sturdy.
How did he get sturdy? Was he just like picking things up for people? Did he go rock climbing? Was he doing push-ups? It's not like he can go to the gym.
Yeah. He just, during his war tours,
he was picking up wounded soldiers and helping carry them to the infirmary.
Yeah, during his war tourism, he's like carrying out ammunition, physically picking soldiers up.
Oh, the cannon, you need it over there? I'm on it.
Did a bit of lightweight lifting.
Oh, yeah, hero Colin running around.
Rebuilding houses.
And you know what? If later in the season Penelope finds that she can't quite manage to walk upstairs, I'm sure he'll swoop in and put his strength to good use. Don't worry.
Ooh.
Please and thank you.
His brothers find it very amusing. Nice to see Anthony being a little bit more relaxed instead of... Because not like a past Anthony would have been like, blah, 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 blah. How dare you do this in the carriage with the windows open kind of thing.
Oh, you're right.
He's a little bit more chilled out. He's finding the humour in it.
Happy Anthony is such a cute Anthony. I'm just excited.
He is.
In the still, when they're all like shocked about Colin, he's like holding Kate's hand. And it's just those tiny details I love. I'm so excited to finally see a returning couple and seeing how they're going to interact in the season. It's going to be fun. I love it.
They are very amused. But we have a little cut to...
Hot air balloon.
Pencil.
Yeah, we were talking about this in our recent episode when we were talking about the Debbling still by the lake.
Right, yes.
So we were taking a little trip to Painshill Park, which is probably stepping in for Hyde Park, Serpentine, etc. in Mayfair. So we were talking about this with a still, but more is going on.
I see the swan. Sorry, I see the swan. It's on...
We have a live swan sighting. A swan has been sighted. I repeat, a swan has been sighted.
It looks like a cake.
Oh, I can see the swan.
Yeah, you can see it's on the left side.
Yep.
Let me see if I can zoom in
Oh,
here.
yeah, that's the swan.
It's pretty big if you look at the people around. Are there like flowers inside of it? Is it like a swan planter? So it looks like they're using this stage for a hot air balloon as opposed to maybe a dance floor, as we suspected.
We thought it was going to be a ball. Yeah.
So if you don't know why we're getting so excited about swans and tents, if you've been listening for a while, you'll remember that we've been tracing the season 3 production crumbs where we've been analysing leaks to try and get as many information and story beats as we could. And this is a scene that we've had filming leaks from in the past. So we believe this is episode 3. And at the time we could see these colourful tents that were in these sort of very light babied colours. And we could see this at the time. It looked like a massive fucking swan. Hence why the episode is called What a Giant Swan.
It is pretty big, I think. It's not as big as the hot air balloon.
Well, I didn't know there's going to be a massive hot air balloon there, did I? Like,
It is also in pollen colors.
it is.
Hat tip to our friend who brought this to our attention. But fun fact, this balloon appears to have been modeled after an early hot air balloon, the first in which a human flew, in fact. The design of the balloon is a reference to the Montgolfier brothers balloon created in the 1780s. I bet you didn't believe you were going to get some hot air balloon facts today. But the symbols on the side are the suns with the face of King Louis XVI, as well as his royal monogram. Also, just to call attention to the picnic blankets in front of the balloon, we think this is from the scene with Debbling and Penelope on their picnic. You can see some people picnicking in front of the hot air balloon.
If you don't know why we get so excited about swans either, and this is pertinent to the promo that was released with the Queen.
The Queen!
Swan imagery has been laced a little bit throughout Penelope and Colin's story, to the point where it's like, we have moments like the feeding the ducks and it actually being a swan. So anytime we see a swan, we're on high alert. Hence why yesterday when we saw that amazing amazing like
diorama.
Fun fact about that is Golda's favorite wig, and it has taken them 2 years to make that wig.
Sorry if you can hear Beans' dog snoring, it's very cute.
I was going to say, that is the sound of the motors that power the swan diorama in her wig.
That's the swans going round and round and round and round. So we've often joked that this scene would be very we did think it would be very fantastical, because we thought that Colin needed to be in like a weird state of mind, like a liminal space where dreams and wake and ideas of Pen were starting to get a little bit blurry. But we didn't know there's a fucking massive hot air balloon.
I had no clue.
So maybe not fantastical, but it's definitely whimsical with the giant hot air balloon.
Not in my wildest dreams did I think we were having a hot air balloon event.
How exciting.
It's so fun.
Because this links back to two stills that we've seen recently. As you say, Lecky, it's the Penelope and Debling still where they look to be shocked or alerted by something that was happening. Penelope looked very concerned. At the time, we wondered if Colin was having an altercation with a swan. I have a new theory for you, because early today before a trailer dropped, some new stills were coming out. I think they were kind of leaked. They were just out in the world. They were flying high. Well, much possibly like this hot air balloon. And we have a still from episode 3. Bear in mind the episode is called Forces of Nature, where the Taunt are arriving to an event where it says, extraordinary novelty, the Hawkins balloon. As you can see, it is tied very firmly down on that stage that we saw in the filming leaks. And in this still, we can see a few familiar faces. We can see Portia, the Featheringtons, Lecky, you were talking about Prudence earlier, and trailing behind Portia, you can see Penelope in the same costume that she's wearing in the Debling still. And then behind Penelope, you can see a gaggle of Bridgerton. What do you call a group of Bridgertons?
A bridge.
What's the collective noun for Bridgerton? A chaos of Bridgertons, surely.
Sure.
Maybe something bee-related. A hive of Bridgertons.
Rest in peace, Edmund. Fly high with the angels.
A beehive of Bridgertons to go with the alliteration.
That's very offensive to Edmund, I'd have you know. But just behind Penelope, you can see Benedict, Eloise and Colin. And Colin's view is firmly on that bloody hot air balloon.
So you believe.
No. He's definitely looking at it because he's looking high in the sky.
Yeah, he's looking up, But we don't see it in the still itself. But we can infer that he's looking at the massive fucking hot air balloon.
Because it's huge. I'm sorry. I feel like this is like, they had the races in season 2, so this is like that event.
This feels like that beat.
Yeah. But I just never did I guess it was gonna be fucking big balloon.
Share your theory, Obs, because I also have some thoughts about this.
So we got a few stills earlier, and piecing this together now, knowing that this is a scene where that Debling Penelope moment happens, and you can see the blankets here. Originally, we thought maybe, we knew that Colin was doing something. There was no doubt. There is no doubt in my soul that Chaos Colin is fucking about.
Do you think he's gonna fall out of a balloon?
Okay, Beats, I've got 2 theories for you, okay?
Okay.
One theory is, I'll do the boring theory because I think this might be true. So there's another still with Benedict, Colin and Gregory in the Bridgerton drawing room, and it looks as if Gregory has his arm in a sling, so it looks like he's been injured.
Aww.
We know from the metadata that this is the same episode, Forces of Nature. Right, my second theory, but my more boring theory, because I think this actually might be true,
I think it is too.
Is something happens where Gregory, because he's a chaotic little shit as well. If you've read his book, you know he puts the rest of them to shame. Somehow gets involved with the balloon. Maybe he's messing around with Hyacinth and he accidentally releases the balloon or gets caught up in the balloon as it pulls away. And hero complex Colin
is activated.
Sees this moment. Also, to be fair to him, like, he would want to save his brother. I'm not taking that away from him.
A lot of hero Colin being activated potentially in this trailer.
He's on it. Mm-hmm. And I wonder if he sees that his brother is going to be injured or die or get like blown away by the forces of nature, because I bet there's like a big gust of wind blowing. And he jumps in at that moment.
With his sturdy arms, reaches up and grabs that rope.
Oh my goodness.
Climbs up and like successfully lands the hot air balloon.
Oh my god, that's what it is.
And Benedict's like, oh, that's how you got that build.
Oh my god. Because we said with Penelope, that's still with Pen, right, that she looked really concerned. It's quite comedic, but she is a bit upset as well. And it looks like Colin's in some sort of danger. And you can imagine if he's almost getting pulled away by a balloon, that would be a very...
But then he surprises everybody by taking control and like successfully climbing up this rope into the balloon and getting it under control, maybe.
There's 2 extra beats to this. Not only does it make Penelope worry for him, but it could be a sexual moment where he's like pulling on the balloon. You see his sturdiness in action. It brings out his very sweet, caring, worried, protectory self, and he tries to fix it. And him stepping in for his baby brother and saving him would be very sweet. My crack theory...
That wasn't the crack theory.
which I don't think is true, but fic writers, please do us a favour and write me this little fic, is that Colin at this point is starting to lose his mind because it's Colin Bridgerton. But he sees Pen with Zebling and he hasn't worked through it yet. He's still like, I don't know why I'm feeling these feelings. And he sees the massive balloon and he's like, it's a really big balloon, is that? And he needs to get Pen's attention. And he just somehow ends up like releasing the balloon and getting carried away with it to get Pen's attention. Be like, Pen, you say you like balloons. Here's a fucking massive balloon. And he like flies away.
But then realizes he can't navigate the balloon. And so he just keeps going.
And that's the end of the season. He's just gone. He's
in Egypt going over one of the pyramids.
You just see in the background of the season, just a little air balloon in the very far distance as Pen walks down the aisle with Zebling.
Yeah, it's a hot air balloon, so I'm wondering, my crack theory is he gets into the hot air balloon. It's like, I can man a ship, I can man a balloon. And then he gets up there, and then I don't know what he does, but the balloon inflates, and then he just falls into the water.
A slightly more grounded theory is that...
What are you talking about tonight?
I love this idea, but a slightly more grounded theory is that maybe potentially he accidentally releases the balloon. And I think that the people are coming here to see the balloon and it's an exhibit, but it's not meant to take flight. No. Or it's meant to take flight at a specific time and not with Colin Bridgerton involved in any way. So I think that he might accidentally release the balloon too early, or maybe even purposely to distract Penelope if like there's a moment with Debling and he wants to interrupt that moment. Our friend was also thinking that maybe since this is inspired by the Montgolfier balloon, that the one in the show could in fact be old. Maybe this is actually meant to be a balloon like the Montgolfier balloon that was made decades earlier. And perhaps if that is the case, maybe it is meant to be displayed after all. So it would be even more shocking if it takes flight, especially with the piratey gentleman dangling from it.
Yeah.
But I have to say, I really love the first theory the most about hero Colin having to climb up into the balloon and like successfully landing it, having his little hero moment. I am all there for that.
And Pen's like, that is the father of my children, please.
Yes.
To add on to the crack theory of mine, as he's falling, a group of swans save him.
Because
Falls into the shore.
because they are notoriously aggressive, as you said.
They are notoriously aggressive. So then they save him and then poke the shit out of him. And then he's like, Pen, will you tend to my wounds?
Oh my god.
Maybe this is like, I just said this might be kind of like an exhibit that they're all coming to see, but maybe there's also another exhibit.
Oh, here's an exhibit.
Where they're going to be the parade of swans. So the swans come out at the same time this whole balloon debacle happens, and he does still maybe have an entanglement with swans.
We all know I hate birds, but it seems like I have a lot of facts about birds, even though I hate them. Was I the only person that knows that swans are aggressive?
No, I was just quoting you because you very matter-of-factly in the last episode said twice, swans are notoriously aggressive. Yeah.
I think because I hate them so much, I'm so hyper aware of them, so I have all of the facts I need.
Not well-versed in swan law, unfortunately.
I could spend all day long here. You know, one day we will, but this is episode 3. Lecky, you've always felt that episode 3 is going to be one of our favourites. I think we thought that Forces of Nature would hopefully prefer more to rain, but if it also alludes to Colin almost getting carried away by a balloon, then that is a visual I'm happy to embrace.
Forces of Nature is probably going to be wind.
Yeah.
Off he blows, bless his little heart.
I love it. Because we talked about how the forces of nature would also be them being pulled towards each other.
Blown into each other.
And later in this trailer, we also see kind of that moment between them in the tent, but then also just to have this really big cinematic sequence where we're going to have this hot air balloon take off. You can't just put it there. You know, it has to take off. Very much looking forward to that.
It's Chekhov's balloon, isn't it?
There is no bigger fucking Chekhov gun than that bitch right there in the middle of that field.
The massive fucking hot air balloon.
So we're going to leave the hot air balloon for just a second because it is time to go back to that garden party from earlier with Colin saying, "It's good to see you." And Penelope says, "Is it?" And it's so vulnerable.
She said, "Fuck off, twat."
Poor Pen. This is the same garden party that she's seen Cressida at, right?
Yes. So she has already had that devastating kind of blow, and then Colin approaches her and she's just not in the mood.
And her day is just getting from bad to worse. She's already had a pretty harsh blow, and the last person she really needs to see right now is Colin kissing half the fucking gloves in London Bridgerton, walking in and telling her it's good to see her. She can't really meet his eye, and we've talked before about how the cold shoulder is quite genuine. It's not her using it as a weapon against him. It's coming from a very genuine hurt and a very genuine, I just want to move on from this.
Yeah.
And we cut to a view of the lunar ball. So this is Osterley, where we've been before in previous stills. And it has the voiceover from the audio we heard in the Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton scene where Colin says, "Is something wrong?" But lucky, things might be wrong over in Goodnight Mr. Bridgerton, but how are they doing over at Osterley? Bear in mind, this is the lunar-themed ball from episode 2.
Yeah, it looks like Penelope is maybe talking to a suitor, and she turns to look at Colin, who is surrounded by women with Benedict. Sadly.
Yeah, and her face sort of dropped because she's clearly out there trying to do her thing.
But she can't help but look at him.
As we see a lovely dance between Cantony, we have a voiceover from Penelope saying, "It seems as though every Bridgerton was born to attract notice. For some of us, the notice is very slight."
But interestingly, Francesca looks very unhappy, though she may be on the dance floor with a suitor at the Four Seasons ball. She looks like she's very comfortable there.
She's so cute.
Good point. So Penelope's words there, we don't know where they're from, but they have that dual meaning of it taps into that not everyone can be pretty Bridgerton sentiment.
She's attracted notice but isn't comfortable with the attention.
For Francesca, it has that double meaning of
she'd rather be the wallflower.
Absolutely. And we've been doing our book reread recently, but that reminds me a little bit of when Penelope realises that Colin's life isn't just perfect just because he's a charmed Bridgerton, that like Francesca looks like the ideal diamond, but we're going to see the struggles that she has been placed in that position where she doesn't naturally take to that role as easily. And as the voiceover says that the notice is very slight, we see that tragically in action. This is a familiar little Pen. She's huddled in the corner. It seems our girl can't stop being a wallflower for too long, bless her heart.
Yes.
Where is she and what is she wearing? Because another familiar little friend of ours.
She is at the Stowell house in episode 3, which you'll remember from the still that we received of Penelope and Deblane standing in the corner at a ball at the Stowell house.
Yeah. And her dress, it's gorgeous. We can see the full length of it here. It's a gorgeous tone of blue. And we've talked about this maybe being Bridgerton blue. Does she still kind of hold out hope for that? But interestingly, I guess this is maybe where she speaks to Deblane.
Unfortunately, she doesn't have luck with the two suitors she speaks to before Deblane approaches her. So we see Lord Wilding and another suitor kind of scoffing and walking away when she attempts to speak with them.
That's Joe Barnes.
That is Joe Barnes, Lord Wilding, yes. He's kind of a jerk, according to this trailer. Penelope isn't having a good time, but after being rejected by these suitors, we can assume from this still that Deblane then approaches her. And this is where they have that moment at the ball.
This is interesting then, because this is episode 3, but also Forces of Nature is episode 3. If she's still trying to talk to suitors, then is she not at the stage yet where she's in this sort of courtship with Deblane?
Maybe she's not quite confident that one relationship will lead to marriage yet. She's still pursuing it, but it hasn't really become serious like we see it becomes maybe in episode 4 with the still of the red ball.
It hasn't been fully pinned down.
Or maybe they say something to her about Deblane and how weird he is, and then that like upsets her.
Maybe.
Yeah, maybe she's like another knockback. But now it's time to take a trip to Penelope's back garden, which is has been seen.
I can't. You cannot
I
say.
need to read.
You can't say back garden because Violet has ruined it.
Okay.
Okay.
We're going to take a trip across to Grosvenor Square into the back garden of Penelope's house, into the gardens of...
The Featherington Gardens.
To the lady garden.
We're at the Featherington house outside in the grounds where Penelope is sat. Is that like a very yellow bench that she's sat on?
It's very yellow.
Yeah, it is.
Very Featherington.
It's a daytime scene. And who is there looking a little bit piratey, Lecky?
Colin, offering to help Penelope find a husband because after all, they are friends, aren't they?
Oh my God. So this is a tragic scene. Colin says, if a husband is what you seek, let me help you. Are we not friends? And Penelope looks at him
Very sadly.
and says, friends.
I will say, they strike this deal in the same place where he said that he would never court her. Wow.
Now, if we think about what that means for both of them, right? Because this location, and we're going to come back to the Featherington house multiple times.
Right.
We've come back here with Moonlight Polin.
Yeah.
Maybe a little dream sequence.
So the progression is, I would never court Penelope, to I will help Penelope find a husband, to I am the husband.
Yeah.
We'll get there eventually. But this location represents so much to both of them in very different ways, and the impact that it has. So for Colin to return here to the scene of the crime, this is him making amends. Like, he is in that actual place, and for him, he's like, this is how I can fix what happened between us. This is what I can fix, what I can do physically in that space. And for him, that's like a step forward for them. He's literally here holding his hand out to her. But for Penelope, she's in that place where she lost everything. It wasn't just Colin that night either, it was Eloise as well. And her being in that garden is the reminder of what he said. And then he's standing in front of her saying, not only am I going to help you find a husband that isn't me, but it's because we're friends. And he means that in such a positive, like, it's the you do not count, isn't it? It's like, I'm your friend. And she hears that as that's all it's ever going to be. And it's just absolutely tragic to see like that once again. So this has got to be what? Episode 1?
Must be, yeah.
Yeah, I'm assuming it's episode 1. We think they hatched this plan in episode 1.
Yeah.
I'm loving how long the pirate stays. I don't think he stays around for that long, but he's definitely around for a few episodes, so he's welcome to stick here. But what do you think about their tone in this? I feel like he's obviously still oblivious, bless his little heart.
She's resigned.
And then there's this close-up of them grasping hands in agreement because they're friends, aren't they? And a nice little friendly handshake between them.
It's really interesting that it's taking place here as well, and that they'll come back to it so much, whether it's in real life or whether it's dreams maybe. It makes me wonder if this is maybe where they start like meeting up for their like lessons. I know we've seen it happen at Colin's house, but you know.
Or maybe the lessons take place at his, and this is the place where a lot of heightened emotions.
Interesting.
Like they keep coming back to this spot, even in dreams.
Yes. They're drawn back there.
Yeah, and he kind of goes there when he wants to find her in a way, which is interesting.
He needs to come and reach out to her, and she's still psychically in that location.
I was going to say, it's interesting. It's almost like they can't leave this moment. They have to return and rewrite that moment to the way it was supposed to happen.
It's their purgatory.
Lucky, can you think of anything that would fix it? I'm feeling like we need to come back here at the end of the season for an assuredly, fervently, loudly declaration. I feel like that is the way to heal this wound where they keep coming back to it. And I just want to give a huge shout out to Nicola's acting in this moment where she sort of gathers and she's like, friends.
Yeah.
It's that last blow to her.
Yeah.
We have a little establishing shot from the party, and we're going to go hang out with Lord Wilding again.
Yes, Colin says he would like to see her skills as they are. Not much skill.
Little lessons plot coming in. So this is what we've said before. He's going to evaluate what we're working with. He's like, let's see how you're doing to start with.
It's really hilarious that Penelope's go-to flirting is what she saw Prudence do last season, where she's like trying to fan her bosom.
So true.
Yeah, she's like, this is the only example I have. Because they are out on a promenade with Colin by her side. This will be episode 2 then, we assume, because she's wearing the same costume as she wears in the market still from Tudum 2023, and she's run into a bunch of lords.
Yes.
She's trying out her flirting. She comments on the weather and says, such splendid weather we are having.
Yes.
That word finally in the script we heard 2 years ago
From the writers.
From the writers that splendid was going to appear more and more. And here we go.
First glimpse of splendid.
Again, Nicola playing it off perfectly as Pen is just trying her best. It's obviously too much. It's really awkward. Pause at 108. Right, because this is a story about two nerds who love each other, right? She is being awkward, and look at Colin's face as she's doing all of that. He is lapping it up. It's gorgeous. He's looking at her with the most affectionate gaze on his face.
Yeah, he loves her nerdiness, her awkward flirting.
The fanning scene has made me laugh every time I've seen it.
Perfectly done.
And Nicola is just very good at comedic timing. That's one of the things I love about Bridgerton. I know that this season in particular has been called a rom-com, but they really are good at infusing comedic beats within the show itself.
Yeah.
And like still finding the very true heart of the story, even within the comedic beats.
Yeah.
But we are going to a little market scene now as the lessons continue, because the voiceover from Penelope says, I would not be angry if you found me to be a lost cause. Clearly reflecting on the fact that he's trying his best, but it isn't going too well for her at first.
Shout out to the little gaze that Colin gives Penelope at this first market stall.
Delicious. This is another little trip to the market. Apparently they're going to be going quite a few times, which is a clever way because it's a public setting, but there's no questions of propriety that are going to be brought up out there.
Yeah.
But his look, he is so enamored by her in that moment.
Yes.
But then we're going to cut, because as she's saying that she's a lost cause, Colin says, you must not say such things. Where are we, Lek?
We are in one of the tents at Painshill at the hot air balloon extravaganza.
Maybe they're in the fucking hot air balloon. Who knows? Who knows at this point? And what's going on between them?
So he is gazing very intently at Penelope, who is touching her lips.
Luke is so good at subtle face acting. He's so fucking good at it.
So she's perhaps maybe just eaten something here, or my second theory was maybe they've had their first kiss at some point before this episode, and she is maybe recalling it here because he is in her presence and maybe is touching her lips for that reason. But I think maybe she's eating.
I think she's eating too.
Because if we suspect that the first kiss scene is going to be at the end of episode 2 or in episode 2 at some point, all of these beats in episode 3, like her at the park with Debling, these moments, do you think it is going to be the case we've suspected where they're going to kiss and his chaos brain is just going to irrevocably activate?
Yes.
And he's done for?
I hope so.
Yes, chaos Colin activates.
Hence why he's going to act up and do things like be chaotic in public.
I have a little theory. What if they're eating something at this little hot air balloon extravaganza and it's something that she's never tried before because it's come from a different country, but maybe one that Colin has traveled to, and he goes, oh, have you tried this before? I ate it in the war zones of France.
To tie into my unhinged swan theory,
She eats swan.
if it's an exhibit for other things besides the hot air balloon, so maybe there's other
Swan jerky.
worldly wonders.
A World's Fair. Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of like a smaller version of a World's Fair or something like that, but it could just be a cake.
But if Penelope is worried that Colin is going to give up on her, then of course he would never forsake you, Pen. He says, you are Penelope Featherington, do not forget that.
And she smiles so adorably when he says that.
Where are we there, Lecky, in that moment?
Oh, the lunar ball at Austerley.
So we're at episode 2, the same scene where he has his hand cut.
Yes.
Post-journal scene, post-wounded, bandage, soldier. And so it's very sweet that as she's still struggling to find her footing, he's there at her side, reassuring her and reminding her that, you know, she's Penelope fucking Featherington, how wonderful. But then we're going to quickly cut to, I think we're going to the Red Ball. There's a shot of carriages. Looks like maybe the Featherington carriage entering Hampton Court Palace. I think this is for the Red Ball with the Queen that we've talked about recently.
Yeah, so we have footmen in green riding into Hampton Court Palace.
And then another quick establishing shot of the outside of the Osterley Ball in episode 2. You can see that full moon high in the sky. I think this is always going to be my favourite ball. It just has so many crumbs memories, but it's so beautiful. And as we're arriving to Osterley, we're inside a carriage with Eloise saying to Colin, she's not seeking a husband in you, I hope. Colin goes, no, I'm merely helping her find one.
I don't know about you, but I was surprised to see Eloise talking to Colin so directly about his relationship with Penelope in this scene, especially considering this is only episode 2. Not only does this mean Eloise must know about Colin's plan, but how ironic that after years of being her best friend and not seeing Penelope's feelings for Colin, it's only now that Eloise even makes that connection. Colin's reaction here is also interesting. He immediately shrugs off Eloise's suggestion, saying, no, I'm merely helping her find one. It genuinely does seem like the thought hadn't crossed his mind before. But I wonder if this is the first domino to fall for Colin. This might be the first time anyone has ever said the possibility aloud of Colin being the one to marry Penelope. And so it's the first time Colin actually has to address the idea instead of repressing it in his subconscious. If this is the last thing he hears before he goes to the Austerley ball, then it's putting him in that frame of mind, whether he realizes it or not, where on some level he's thinking about being Penelope's husband. And the fact that it was Eloise who put that idea into his head, that's just perfect to me.
Again, highlighting, which I think we'll maybe delve into that in a future episode, the tension that's going to exist between Colin and Eloise as Colin comes closer to her.
Yes. But then he sees Penelope laughing at something that, it might be Lady Danbury who's standing in front of her. I'm not sure. She's speaking with somebody and she's kind of laughing to herself. And he sneaks a peek at her. He can't resist eyeing her from across the ball. And then we kind of see Eloise studying them, maybe taking note of this little moment.
Yeah, she's keeping an eye on them. And she says, since when are you worried about Penelope? Which highlights again the fact that Eloise has never really seen it. Not even seen this side of it, but has never placed enough emphasis on the friendship side of it.
I wonder now if Elle will catch on much earlier to Colin's feelings than we ever thought, and if she will try to negatively interfere. But what I like about this moment, though, is that it's played for comedy instead of just heavy drama. It would be nice to see this lightness in the Penelope's and Polin storylines instead of straight angst all the way through.
Yeah.
And then we have the hand cutting scene, which we've seen before. Pretty much that exact still in action.
But we haven't seen it in movement. Yeah.
And we also haven't really seen it so much from Colin's perspective, where we can kind of see him looking into her eyes. So good.
Do you think this is going to be one of those defining moments that Luke talked about before?
Yeah, maybe.
Because we're in episode 2 territory. Something has to happen in episode 2 that sends him insane. And I think we've got a good contender a little bit for what's going to push him over the edge.
He's like a hero, so maybe he also likes that she's coming to his rescue here and kind of tending to his wound.
You know, he just wants to be needed, but sometimes it's just enough to be loved. But then this is what I think is the turn in his story. So we've seen his swagger, we've seen his little confidence, and we get a gorgeous shot of him in his room, maybe. It's a very, very moody shot. He is clearly in torment. Do you think that's where he's finally having to do some thinking?
Yes.
Where he's going to have to sit and actually do introspection?
Yeah.
Yeah. Earlier, we discussed a scene in the trailer where Penelope was seen sitting behind a burning candle. This trailer and this scene seem almost in direct contrast to the moment we saw with Penelope. Colin actually spends so much of this trailer taking Penelope's old place, lurking in the shadows of ballrooms at times, and here we find him sitting next to a candle with a barely noticeable flame. But as he sits by himself, presumably lost deep in thought about Penelope, he comes to a realization that is represented to us in such a clever and beautiful way on screen through the candle beside him. Fans have pointed out that the flame isn't new. It's been burning all along, but the flames suddenly strengthen as Colin comes to this moment of realization. It is quite literally a light bulb moment for Colin, albeit a deeply pensive one. And what we love about the scene is how it's used as almost a turning point in the trailer for Colin, with his earlier charming swagger disappearing after this point, his feelings for Penelope finally illuminated. And I suppose the key question is, when is this scene taking place for Colin? It's hard to say for certain. This is clearly late at night in his room, but we assume it is after an important event where he spent a significant time with Penelope. I wonder if this is actually going to be after the Austerley ball. We've always felt that it would be a significant event just because of the sheer size of the setup there, but the more we've seen, especially those moments of Penelope and Colin catching each other's eye at Austerley and the moment of them giggling together, I suspect that Austerley might be the point where Colin starts to realize what Penelope means to him, especially after the idea I mentioned earlier that it's actually Eloise who's the one to put the idea in his mind just before he arrived at the ball. I think this could be where the threads start to unravel for Colin in episode 2, where he spends more and more time with Penelope only for him to be consumed by thoughts and fantasies of her before it all culminates in the moonlight confrontation.
We see the outside of the Featherington house. Penelope late at night in bed, restless, and Lecky, what's she doing?
She gets out of bed and yanks open her wardrobe, and we think this is the episode 1 moment that Nicolette talked about where she opens her wardrobe and you can see on the very top of her wardrobe that yellow dress that she wore in season 1, where she decides to change her wardrobe and get that glow up.
Yeah, and kickstart that aspect of her story. One thing to note, as she opens the wardrobe, the next connecting shot of someone looking through jewellery isn't connected to this moment.
No.
It's a slightly different later moment as she is getting ready. As we can see, earrings in, necklace on, a little bit of rouge on the lips, a hand on the door, and there she enters into the Four Seasons ball. Emerald pen, there she is. How's it going down?
This is one of my favorite moments in the trailer where they say that
what this author knows to be true is that diamonds are not the only gems that sparkle.
And then they cut to her entering that Four Seasons ball with like that red cloak being yanked off her. It's so cinematic. Just what a great shot. And everybody reacting. How amazing is that one shot?
Cheeseman looks like he's gonna be one of Penn's biggest stands, biggest supporters, because he is just beaming when she walks in, and like every time he's been around her, he's just smiling and being supportive. And I love it.
Yeah. This moment almost reminds me of something like in Anastasia when she appears at the ball in that dress.
Yeah.
Colin looks stunned.
No, that's not the Four Seasons ball. It's the same arcs as...
You're right. That is an arch behind Colin.
Yeah.
Well, not everybody looks as happy as Mr. Cheeseman. We have shots of Cressida and Eloise reacting to Penelope's entrance, and Cressida looks stunned, and Eloise, who had been smiling, her smile falls off her face.
And Prudence and Philippa also look none too happy to see her.
Oh my god.
What?
Fife watch! He's drinking in the background. Fife watch! He's behind Dankworth. He's sipping his little,
Yeah.
Oh, that was stunning. Forget Colin for a second, sorry. I'm sorry, but the way...
Oh, the fact he's drinking.
The way the glass comes down...
Some great glass acting.
Where is the BAFTA? Where is the BAFTA for Bert Seymour?
And listen, I know that Nicholas said that Fife does not like her, but...
I'm not buying it.
He's drinking that wine, or whatever he's drinking, like he is stressed.
He is a man dying of thirst.
I believe Nicola that Fife doesn't like Penelope.
Yeah, I think he's just there for the drama.
But yeah, that is him enjoying a cocktail. I think he just likes the drama. Yeah, for sure.
He does like the drama, but he also likes her.
No.
But I think this is the trope they're playing with. What Jess has mentioned before, the showrunner, is this is like the big swoony moment where like the music would swell and the heroine enters in a transformed dress. It's a Cinderella moment, but I think it's the inversion, and it's an important inversion that not everyone's massively impressed with it.
And then it's also a sign that just changing your wardrobe isn't enough to make people change the way they view you. Yeah. And that's important for Penelope's journey to realize that the confidence also has to come from within her.
I learned that lesson from a girl at school. I decided to suddenly go and buy all my clothes at River Island, and I was like boasting to my friend, and I was like, I really think this is going to be like a new era for me, like with my River Island clothes.
I've done that.
And she was like, Veg, just because you have clothes from River Island doesn't make you cool. I say she was a friend.
Oh, Veg.
I've done that too, but then I also like would go to Boston during the summer and then make that my entire personality, and people would be like, just because you went to Boston doesn't mean you're cool.
Well, talking about people's lives not improving, poor Penelope, bless her little heart.
Yeah.
Stunning ball though, stunning ball.
And then we have the hostess with the mostess, although she's over at the palace, Lady Danbury. You know what we didn't really get here? We didn't get any hints that Lady Danbury is going to be directly involved with Pen. We didn't get any any of those moments. So who knows if they're going to come up.
I have an aside. During Penelope's entrance in the last scene, there was also a royal footman posted at the door. So it is possible that the red ball isn't maybe a royal ball.
They're just there whenever the queen is.
But I'm going to hold out hope that it is.
It makes sense.
But we're over at the palace, and it's Lady Danbury who tells Queen Charlotte that Lord Deblane is looking for a wife this season. And she has out in front of them the little cards of, I'm guessing it's suitors this time instead of debutantes.
Yeah.
Because she pulls one out and pushes it forward when she mentions Lord Deblane. Unless it's Penelope's card that she's pushing forward. But what I think is interesting is that it is Lady Danbury who brings Lord Deblane to Queen Charlotte's attention.
Doing the matchmaking. Yeah.
And I think this is what puts Pen under the scrutiny of the Queen and leads to her maybe becoming the Emerald of the season, as we speculated.
Because the Queen just wants a good story to keep her entertained. Yeah. But the man of the moment, sorry, Colin, you are here as well. You're floating on that balloon still, darling.
Just keep climbing up that balloon.
Just keep climbing. The other man of the moment is here as Lord Deblane strides towards Penelope.
Yes.
I think they're in a library with other people milling around.
Which we recognize.
Oh, yeah, Lecky, tell me about it. Where are we? Who are we? When are we?
We are at Rest Park, and he is with Blue Pen. Guys, this is Blue Pen.
Here she is, finally.
Yes.
And you know, it's always funny because you always said, Lecky, that she had a hairband in.
Yeah.
And she does, and it's a really unusual hairstyle. Veg will have to go into costume analysis later, but she has it pulled down into one side in quite a modern way.
Yeah.
But
sadly, not an off-the-shoulder dress as we speculated.
It's gorgeous.
But this is Blue Pen because they were filming at Rest Park, and we recognized the interiors as the library.
However, I can see why you thought it was a blue dress, or off-the-shoulder dress. We know why it was a blue dress, because it's fucking blue.
Because it's blue.
she's a pixel, that's why.
Because the sleeves are mesh, so it sort of gives that effect.
Yeah.
I think she looks absolutely radiant here. So we think this is probably episode 3 or 4. We think.
This is episode 4, we believe, because we'll come back to the shot that comes after this, but there's a shot of Colin watching them from across the room later in the trailer, and he is standing with Francesca, who is wearing the same jacket that Francesca is wearing in the episode. What? Am I going off on a spiral?
No. I love how ridiculous our conversations are.
Okay, sorry. So Colin is standing with Francesca, who is wearing a very familiar jacket that you will recognize from the stills we received at Christmas. She has this very kind of fuzzy striped jacket.
Tweedy.
While the coloring in the trailer looks a lot brighter. I think it's just that the coloring in the two scenes was different. But we know that episode is 304, so I feel like this Rest Park gathering takes place in episode 4 as well.
There you go. Polin sleuths. Little rabbit hole for you to fall down. What I think is interesting, again, it'll have to be for a different episode, where maybe we should chart a breakdown by breakdown in a future episode, interaction of Pen in each Debling scene to see her journey and to piece it together.
The progression.
But I think we see moments where she isn't looking as certain, but here she's kind of a little bit happy as she's smiling.
Yes, but This is the scene I'm most excited to talk about.
Go for it.
At the Red Ball.
Back at the Red Ball. Who knew this Red Ball from fucking Good Morning Britain? What have you done to me, you lot? From the This Morning leaks would be so significant because we're off to another ball with Debling and...
Debling is dancing with Penelope and he says that she looks especially beautiful. But when they cut to Penelope, she looks panicked. And I think this is the moment that she realizes that Debling is going to propose and that she cannot accept. And I feel like this is the climactic ball before the carriage scene.
Ooh.
Yeah. Do you think this is the one where it all finally kicks off and breaks?
Wow.
Yes.
Because Debling tells her, you look especially beautiful tonight, Miss Featherington.
Yeah.
I mean, she does. It's Enchanted Pen. Who couldn't love her?
It's definitely a big moment.
Yes.
It's definitely a big moment. I'm not sure about the carriage scene. I feel like I'm a carriage scene doubter.
It's definitely coming in part one because it visually,
So
it has to.
Okay.
later in this trailer, we also see two performers dancing on what appears to be a painting of Eros and Psyche. This is why I think it's the carriage scene, because of that story about basically Psyche was meant to marry somebody else, but she's whisked away and she ends up with Cupid, with her true love. And I feel like that's what's going to happen here.
Symbolically happening.
And when I was researching this painting in our break earlier, they say that the painting depicts the transition from the physical realm to the heavenly. And I feel like this is a physical moment before Penelope is taken away to that out of this world experience with Colin, where they finally give in to their feelings for each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
I know what you mean, Veg. Like, it's hard to sort of pinpoint when that story beat is going to come.
Yeah, it just doesn't feel like they're there yet. But it is a trailer and it's not a summary of the series. And I need to remind myself of that. And I'm sure others are clowning like I am.
I think it's in part one, but either way, I think this is the ball before it happens.
Okay.
We know it was filmed in in that block.
Episode 4.
I agree with both of you saying that this is like a big moment, and like you were saying, it's that transcendent moment.
Yes.
I think what you have here, do you know when she's dancing with him, her face, she sort of looks a tiny little bit horrified.
She looks panicked to me.
Do you think this is the moment that she's like, oh shit, first of all, I can't do this, and it's actually going this direction?
Yeah, we've speculated in the past, or I have, that there would be a moment where Penelope realizes she can't go forward with Debling because she doesn't actually love him, regardless of what happens with Colin, whether they end up together, maybe because of what's happening with the Queen or any sort of bounty that might be going on. At some point, she realizes she can't be with Debling, but that's mostly because she has feelings for Colin, and she has to be true to herself, even if they don't end up together.
And then as they're dancing, the moment slightly shifts. It's actually a different dance that he turns her into.
Yes.
They're dancing together. I think we're trying to figure out the location of this one.
Editor's note, we've been calling this the Arches Ball for a lack of a better term, but a listener alerted us to the fact that the ball was filmed at Grimsthorpe Castle, which also seems apt as Colin seems a bit grim about the situation he's now facing with Penelope and Debling.
There's a still of Colin who has an arch behind him. Initially, we thought that was at the Four Seasons ball. I do not believe so. I think it's at the same ball. And after or before he has a conversation with Violet about friends becoming lovers, which we'll get to. And you can see in his expression that he looks like he's about to cry. But yeah, I just wanted to connect all of those together because I think that particular scene is going to be the catalyst for a potential fantasy scene, which we will talk about. Continue.
So hold that thought with regards to that ball. So sorry that we're jumping all up. We're just going through it chronologically, but knowing that this is the opposite of chronology.
Yeah.
Because we're going to a Colin who looks very, very concerned.
Yes.
He's with a couple. You think it might be Will and Alice, perhaps it's kind of out of focus.
It looks like it could be, she's got sort of curls at the back of her head that do seem like Alice's.
Yeah, I can see that.
But we do know the location because they are at the Stoll house. You'll see the stag mounted behind him. And if you remember from the still with Debling and Penelope, there was a stag reflected in the mirror behind them.
Yeah, which would mean that Colin is stressed early, right? Because Pen's still half a wallflower at that point.
Yeah, so this is episode 3, and Beans noticed that Colin is doing something very interesting in this scene.
So it's very subtle, and
Classic Luke Newton.
Luke Newton is very good at the subtleness of all of this. There's just so much power in his expression. He has very expressive eyes. This is not a love letter to him, I promise. But what you'll notice is he's looking to the side of what we're presuming is Will and Alice, and he slightly shakes his head.
Yeah, so we think he's watching Penelope and Debling together.
Yes.
And his reaction is just almost subconsciously he shakes his head.
Yeah.
Now, if you match up the shots, because of the stag head, the reflection, I kind of think that Penelope is looking at him in this moment. I think she's with Debling, doing what she's supposed to be doing, what the whole plan has been, and I think he catches her eye and she catches his, and I don't think he knows he's doing it, like you say, because I think, like you say, it's just his soul going, no, don't.
Yeah.
And it's so tiny. And this is
so good.
This is why both these actors are so good, because they can do the funny comedy, but it's these tiny, tiny imperceptible moments that just
kill us.
That's the state he's in episode 3.
Yeah.
Colin might not be too happy about how well it's going, but someone is delighted.
Yes.
Who's entering the frame, Beans?
Oh, it's my lover, Polly Walker, Miss Portia, baby, Portia.
As she says, you have done very well, Penelope.
Yes. And she's wearing blue and green. But it's interesting that she's wearing blue and green in this scene where she's potentially telling Penelope that she's done a good job in attracting Lord Debling's notice. But maybe subconsciously in her wardrobe, we see that eventually the Bridgerton connection is going to be what wins out in the end.
And we've wondered before, and I think we'll save it for our next episode, about how Portia will feel about Penelope's journey through the different aspects.
Yeah.
But here she seems to be very much embracing the Debling. You can understand it. He's a lord.
Yeah.
He might be a bit kooky, but ultimately it is security. I love Penelope's reaction here. I mean, I don't love it because I want a girl happy, but I think it's so gorgeously acted. Also, this is like one of the first times she's had exuberant praise from her mother.
Yeah.
So it's almost like she doesn't quite know what to do with it.
Yeah.
She's trying to go along with it. I wonder if part of the story with Debling is that she just sort of gets pulled along with it.
Yes.
From pressures from, like, if the Queen wants her there, if the Queen wants that entertaining story, if Lady Danbury's trying to push her that way.
Yeah.
And Penelope here, although she's had the impetus to start the journey of finding a husband, we see here in the trailer that it's driven by unhappiness. It isn't driven by this amazing life decision. I'm going to change my life. I've kind of been forced into this. And then it feels like Debling is this character who is swept away by it, not in a romantic sense, but in terms of all these forces. And she doesn't really know what to do. And you can see that here where she's just kind of part of it.
Yeah, that kind of ties into the voiceover that we hear right after this, where Portia says, what more could you want?
Yeah.
Because Lord Debling is the perfect suitor on paper.
We see them laughing together. They probably do get on, and she'll be like, why is it not clicking?
Yeah.
But the voiceover is interesting because it also, presumably there is a moment where maybe Portia realizes that Penelope isn't happy. The tone of it almost sounds like she realizes that Penelope is hesitant about the match in some way. And she's saying, what more could you want?
Yeah. There's a tenderness almost. And you know what? We know the answer to what Penelope wants in life.
Yeah, of course.
We have it in the purpose scene and we know who was there with her. But we're back at this mystery ball that we're going to do our best to pin down.
Yep.
And Pen and Debling are taking a little sip of lemonade, maintaining a bit of eye contact.
Lemonade.
So the two of them take a sip of lemonade and gaze at each other, but who's on the lookout for them? It's not Colin, but someone else.
No, it's Cressida. Cressida is watching them from the background.
Dun, dun, dun. Less than impressed. But it's a busy old night at this as yet unnamed ball that we're going to pin down a little bit more, because we have Colin. We have dreamt about him saying these fucking lines for 2 years.
I know, how good is this?
Also, can I just say how funny this is, right? Because this is so him. And it's such an earnest line, and I love the line. I think it's gorgeous. He says, Mother, do you believe the best foundation for love is friendship? And part of me is like, if you'd fucking listened in season 1.
You must simply marry the man who feels like your dearest friend.
Violet's like, oh, did you miss that lesson, my son?
If somebody had paid a fucking attention, why is this boy coming 2 years later? He was like, oh, I've got this question. Yes, it is.
Also, can I just say this? Violet's answer is bullshit. She has for 2 fucking seasons talked about you should be friends and lovers, and then this she's like,
it is rare, but you must follow your heart.
Blah, blah, blah. Bitch, for 2 seasons you've been like, no, we need friends that are loving.
It's like easy peasy, lemon squeezy.
Maybe she doesn't get on with Marcus at all, and it's all about the boning and nothing about the friendship.
Maybe she wants him to come to that conclusion himself, and she's just kind of trying to be a little more subtle with it because he didn't catch her direct lecture from season 1.
Yeah, Colin does really well with subtlety, doesn't he?
Season 1, season 2.
Maybe she's like, if you don't listen the first fucking time, I'm like this, I have no patience. Like, if you're not listening the first time, I'm not repeating it to you.
Oh.
He's like, please, I'm like lost. She's like, I told you once. But then as this happens, my favourite moment of the entire trailer, I love this clip.
Yes.
So much. When are we, Lecky?
Back at the Austerley lunar ball, and Penelope and Colin are giggling together.
Yeah.
I hope so much that he has told her some dirty, horrible pun, or she has made one, and they're just kind of laughing together over it. Or maybe this is kind of a return to like a What a Barb moment where they're kind of laughing at somebody else from on like the edges of the dance floor. This is the Polin relationship to me, like to a T. This is the perfect scene.
This is it in a nutshell.
I love it.
This is Friends to Lovers, right? And I'm like, and Pen laughs so deeply and genuinely, and she's just had a miserable.
Sorry if you can hear my cat being horny in the background.
No explanation needed for that, Beans. I don't know how to segue that really. Biscuit's having a time of year, let's just say. She's well, though. She is well. I don't know how we go from cats in heat to Polin giggling.
I'm in heat watching them.
There's a story there somewhere.
Not such a heated moment, but very cute.
So this is the Friends core of it. They just love being around one another. And this is how they rebuild their friendship. And I think this is what Luke Newton was saying about, it's not, oh, she doesn't want to have anything to do with me, so I feel like I'm going to chase her. It's their friends.
Yeah.
We're back in the library at Rest Park, and Penelope is reading a book with Debling hovering over her.
Yes. What we didn't notice in our first glimpse of their scene together at Rest Park is that Penelope does have a shawl, as we talked about, and her shawl, if not her dress, does appear to have like an ombre two-tone effect. So it's blue and purple. And I feel like this hint of purple is showing that she's having difficulty suppressing her feelings for Colin at this point in the story.
Yeah.
And vice versa. When they cut to Colin, he also seems a little bit upset.
Because we have the reverse shot. And if you're wondering, it does look like a very different background. It looks like they were in a very green room and Colin is in a red room. But this is the setup at Rest Park. We'll share some pictures of the set so you see how this is the connected moment.
And this is where Francesca is wearing the jacket that she appears to have on in the 304 still that we received at Christmas.
So this is episode 4, we're thinking, this moment here. And it's a boy on the brink because, oh my God, this is why we spent 2 years doing this, because I knew we'd get shit like this that would knock it out the park.
Not only does this feel reminiscent of the way we were first introduced to Polin, with Butterfly Pen quietly watching Colin dance with a debutante in 101, but I'm sure many fans will feel the striking parallel to Penelope watching Colin and Marina together in season 1. Most interestingly, it reminds me of those moments when she wasn't just watching them together, like in 101, but more akin to the moments in 105 when she was wanting to take action to stop the trajectory of the relationship, but was trying to figure out how exactly to do it. I wonder if Colin here is caught in a similar dilemma, not just longing for Pen, but grappling with whether he should follow his head and let Pen go ahead with her courtship, or whether he should follow his heart and intervene. I think we might see this conflict come to a climax at the Red Ball, which is the same episode as this moment.
Look at the expression on his face. His eyes like glistened over as he's watching Pen and Debling.
Devastated.
Shout out, Veg. I know you're going to do some more costume breakdown later in the week, but what is notable about Colin's costume here, if we just want to break our hearts open even more?
Yeah, so our beautiful broken-hearted Colin is standing wearing a yellow cravat, shining on his neck, not in his soul.
Absolutely tragic. The boy fucking loves her. Do you think at this point he really, really knows it and he thinks he's lost her?
Yeah, I think so.
And then, as we reach the climax of the trailer, we have an aerial shot of 2 dancers on a dance floor.
Some people have speculated that this might be Benedict and Sophie or Kate and Anthony dancing, but the dance floor appears to be the one from the Red Ball because you'll notice the broken columns. And you can also see that there are people in the audience and that the 2 performers, one of them is half-dressed and below them is that painting of Eros and Psyche that we mentioned. So we think that they're performing the Eros and Psyche dance.
Yeah, I think this is like an actual performance.
Yes.
This sort of ballet-inspired dance where he's not wearing anything on top, that's quite like a normal costuming for them. Now, Lecky, this Red Ball definitely seems like a significant event in part 1, right? It pops up numerous times throughout the trailer and all the new stills that we've had. We've had Pen and Debling dancing, Cressida and Ella together from that Vanity Fair still. We've got Marcus and Lady D hanging around. And it all seems like it's revolving around whatever is going on with Enchanted Pen and Enchanted Colin. If you remember, I'm sure you vividly remember, Lecky. We first saw this ball in the 2023 This Morning leak.
Top of the morning.
And it's always caught our eyes for a few reasons.
Yes, the decor is super interesting. Firstly, we still think it could be a royal ball. That would make sense because we saw a Featherington carriage pull into Hampton Court Palace also in the trailer. In the original leaks, we also spotted broken Grecian columns amidst the very red theming of the ball, but now we get an even clearer look at the decor. We can see there's not just broken columns, but the ruined walls of a temple. We've talked before about classical references in Polin's story, and we've wondered if maybe the Odyssey or Pygmalion would be played with in season 3. Seeing a ball like this where the ancient walls are literally crumbling feels very representative of Colin's state of mind. His world is falling down around him as he comes closer and closer to losing Pen. Broken columns, broken Colin.
Oh, don't. Oh, that's heartbreaking. It's a happy ending eventually.
Yeah.
But in the This Morning stills, we could kind of see that there was something on the floor, like a design of some kind. We get a much better view of it here.
Yes, it's a painting of Cupid and Psyche, or Eros and Psyche as they are also known. This one seems to be a reference to one called The Rapture of Psyche by William Adolph Bouguereau. It's actually from 1895, but we can put that to one side for our Regency fantasy show. Obviously, you like a little ancient mythology. Why don't you tell us about Eros and Psyche?
Absolutely. You know I do. You know I love hanging out with my ancient friends.
When you're not with the Lord Squad, you're with the Greek gods.
And sometimes they're one and the same. They've got a lot going on there. Tell me that Fife is not Dionysus personified. Our main source of the Psyche and Eros myth is actually from the Roman novel, The Golden Ass, or Metamorphoses by Apuleius. It's quite a convoluted tale, Lecky. I'll give you the Spark Notes edition. Do you have Spark Notes? I think you have Cliff Notes.
Yeah.
But essentially, Psyche is the beautiful youngest daughter of three. She gets loads of attention, which pisses Venus off naturally. Interestingly, she struggles to attract suitors because everyone's like, you're so beautiful that you're like a statue. And so her parents are really stressed out because she doesn't have any suitors. But, you know, they've got bigger things to worry about because it turns out that Venus is so pissed off at Psyche's beauty that she sends her son Cupid to do a little matchmaking. Would you believe? She wants to like hook her up with a monster and sort of exile her out of society, but the plan backfires because Cupid ends up falling secretly in love with her himself. He like scratches himself with his arrow.
Who would have thunk it?
Can I just say he cuts his hand? I think it's his hand. Who else is going around cutting hands? Our boy loves an injury. But yeah, there's loads of shenanigans, loads of chaos Cupid knocking around. We've got scheming sisters, errands to the underworld, lots of things keeping our two lovers apart. But eventually they're reunited and Zeus announces his approval of the marriage in front of everyone. And this stops Venus from acting up again. He's like, I approve, you keep quiet, everything's great. She's deified. It's a good time all around.
Really interesting parallels there. I love the way that they chose this painting in particular, which captures Cupid carrying Psyche safely away to a life of marriage with him instead of a wrong marriage elsewhere. It does sound like there are a lot of parallels in the story, especially with Cupid being her matchmaker, only to accidentally matchmake himself.
Colin, babe.
And Zeus at the end protecting the marriage against Venus sounds like our theory that the queen will make a declaration to protect Polin from Cressida's blackmail, which I hope we touched on in a recent episode, but I think it's mainly in Block 4. But I think we've touched on it in some other episodes.
Oh, we will get there eventually. The Venus thing is so interesting because the reason Venus is so mad at Psyche isn't just because of her beauty, it's because everyone is so focused on Psyche that Venus
feels overshadowed.
And this is like, you know, the Cressida, Debling, Penelope thing. We were all worried about a love triangle and it's Cressida, Debling and Pen. Yeah. And Pen's like, I'm really out of it. Have you seen his gloves? I'm happy with Colin.
But the painting itself just works beautiful in its own right here with the lovers being carried away together, not by hot air balloons, sadly, but they are wrapped in blues and lilacs. And Psyche has long red hair and she has butterfly wings, as she is often depicted with.
The matchmaker and the butterfly. If that doesn't just sum them both up, eh?
I was also going to mention that this myth also works for the hot air balloon sequence because it's this wind carrying Colin towards Penelope, kind of an inversion.
Which is what happens in the myth.
Yeah, she gets carried away by the wind.
Who knew, Lecky, that hot air balloons and Cupid's bows would be so integral? And I like the idea that they are performing that story that's been told.
Yeah.
And that this is going to build and build and build to be a pivotal ball for Penelope, Colin, maybe even other characters as well as it all comes to a boil.
Yeah.
And then we have a beautiful shot of our window pen from Tudum looking out. And then...
Sex Dream Colin.
Does someone say wildest fantasies? Hello, because someone is waking up in a bit of a sweat.
Yeah.
Because you've got a really interesting point about this, because obviously what we see is Colin jump up out of his sleep. But there's something interesting about the way the shot is.
Yeah, it's slightly blurred around the edges around him. It's like a portrait shot and everything behind him is blurry.
It's like, do you know when you're starting to get Lecky, you'll know you get loads of migraines. Do you know when you're starting to get a migraine and sort of the edges of your vision start going? Yeah. It's like this. So we're a blurry fandom, but we'll return to the blurriness in a little bit. But he has jumped awake. Do we think someone's had a little dream? And Lecky, you speculated before that these moments of window pen and Colin waking up are maybe the connected day that then turn into Unicolin.
Yes, in episode 2.
And that sent him unhinged into going to her garden.
Yes. We will revisit that.
Poor Colin is really suffering in this.
Yeah, right at the start, we're like, that little shit, Colin Bridgerton. And then he's like, he kind of looks heartbroken.
We have another little dance. We have a little very sultry Penelope writing her little whistle down notes.
Yeah, her robe this season almost looks like kind of silk or something like that. Very cute.
As whistle down voiceover ends saying,
What is the primary force that guides us along our paths?
We have a shot of Francesca looking up at her parents' portrait. We've often wondered what the Violman parallel is going to be, but clearly something's going to be explored there. Talking of Violman, we have Violet with Marcus Anderson. We saw earlier one of the stills that was released was of Marcus Anderson with Lady Danbury.
I think this was also initially a Beans prediction.
It was.
You called it from day one.
It was after the Deadline article came out. I thought he was for Violet.
July 2022. It's been a long 2 years. And it looks like that storyline is getting underway as well, as he smiles at her. We have a very sweet moment between Will and Alice. We'll try and return to them in a future episode. So, Mondriches, we love you. We're tired. We'll come back to you soon, I promise. We hope you're thriving.
Very sweet little kiss.
Very sweet. Truly, truly the greats. Speaking of the greats, a lovely little Kate and Anthony swirl. But then, oh my word, Lord in heaven, have mercy on our souls, because we have this very dramatic moonlight meeting. It is not the moonlight still, is it? They're wearing different clothing.
No, but they are in the same location.
Yeah.
You don't know this because we haven't released our Block 4 episode yet, but Veg found this location.
Yes, hello. I went to this place.
I am so sorry to Block 4. We know you're our abandoned child. We'll come back to you one day in the coming weeks.
Yeah.
But yes, I visited. We found the doorway. We found the courtyard.
At Basildon Park.
We found the doorway where she's standing in the moonlight still.
Yes.
Yeah.
And this is the same location that he's revisiting, but it's a different scene.
Because, yes, she's not wearing the Moonlight Pen dress.
Nope. And they both arrive together in sort of this doorway of framing, this very dramatic moment. Does Colin say Penelope?
Yes.
He does say Penelope.
Does he say Penelope? Oh my god.
Penelope.
Colin says Penelope, not a pen.
Yeah.
Pen's out the door.
Yeah.
Pen's last year. Penelope.
Make that my fucking ringtone.
Tattoo it. You're getting a tattoo this weekend. Let's go, Veg. We're not actually going to do that. As the voiceover concludes, and thus the trailer concludes with the line,
Is it our minds or our hearts?
and you know what, Beans, once again, because we've talked about how Lady Whistledown's going to have to talk about herself and is probably going to process a lot of Penelope's emotions through Whistledown. You've said it's Pen the practical versus Pen the romantic. And that's a summary that she's grappling with. Is it our minds or is it our hearts?
Yes, exactly.
I don't think that's a question about Colin. I think that's a question about Pen. And ultimately, where do you trust, even when you've had all the evidence? But we cannot brush past this little scene. Oh my God. For a start, this sequence where he's walking towards her, the whole sequence is infused with just this level of fantasy, of drama. As he's striding towards her, which fans have picked out as very sort of Darcy-esque, there's like a flashing light. Is it like a fire? Like a torch?
It's definitely a fire. It must be like a torch.
There's very, very heavy fog, and you can see as they arrive together, it's drenched in fog. And this really reminds me of like a romantic vignette almost, if that makes any sense. Like very, very heightened. Like this is what you'd get on the cover of a book. It's otherworldly, it's dramatic, it's
Ethereal.
Do you know what it is? This is the same sort of effects that we saw during the dance sequence of Daphne and Simon in season one. It has the same quality to it.
Yeah. Which is why Beans believes.
Means what's going on here?
I think it's the true fantasy sequence. Because towards the end of the clip, the border around Pen has that same blurriness as when Colin wakes up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's like the transition from sleep to waking.
Yeah.
I love this because it means that he dreams about this moment, about having this really romantically charged moment with Penelope outside of her house. And then he wakes up that day and he enacts that.
Oh, and then he makes it happen.
He takes his wildest fantasy and he turns it into a reality.
So let's just break down for a second. We're almost there, but the expressions on his face, because it would be easy to say he strides into the scene and they have this wonderfully charged moment, but I think it's almost, he is distraught. And if this is a dream sequence as well, this is a dream sequence where he is distraught by what's happening. So Penelope sort of walks towards him, he strides towards her, meets her. She's looking up at him with this confusion, bewilderment, astonishment, but his expression, he's undone. I think you can see him, he's almost crying.
He looks so in love in this moment. It's like about to kiss her.
He looks tormented though.
Because we've been led to believe that there might be a very spicy scene in episode 2 between Polin. So I wonder, does it become spicy after this moment? Because it seems so hesitant here. You know what I mean? And he seems so emotional.
I think that it's going to appear apprehensive, but it's that tension of like where you don't know what you're going to do, but then when you guys like come together, it's like all of that just sort of explodes out of you. So I think we're going to see them kiss in the dream, and he's going to wake up and be like, oh, damn. So.
But it's got to be spicy then, because they hinted that there would be a very...
Yeah, it might be a spicy kiss.
dream.
I could see it being like they kiss and then it they don't like suddenly start undressing each other, but maybe it like fades to like other kind of things he's imagining later on.
That's a good point. Like it segues to, especially because if it's a dream, they don't necessarily have to stay in this one location. So it could segue to him imagining her in bed or in his room in front of a mirror, something like that. That's a really good point, Veg, because the dream can take you anywhere.
Yeah.
So it could be cutting between different moments where if this is the first thought he has about kissing her, then all of a sudden they are kissing, or he glimpses like a part of her dress coming off her shoulder, like an undressing moment.
I had a dream about a guy that had 8 nipples and had skin like a cow, and we were sitting in the clouds.
Great.
That's hopefully not what's quite happening here. I have to say, I don't think this part of the dream, I don't think it's spicy. I think he's really genuinely upset. And I like the idea that it could vignette into something else, but
I don't see upset, to be honest. I see him looking like he wants to kiss her and being in love with her.
how do you not see? Like, he is crying. He is, like, distraught.
He does look upset, but I feel like it has to be a sexy dream, right?
He looks upset, but if you look, you can see him looking at her lips in the dream.
That's an I want to kiss you face.
His eyes shift.
Yeah.
I like Veg's idea as well that it could shift into, like, a different part of the dream.
Yeah.
Actually, his eyes start on her lips, and then he looks back up at her eyes.
See.
So that could be pre-kiss.
Yeah.
What a romance.
And once again, Lecky, if this is a dream sequence, which is completely just our theory, our guess at this point, where are they? Where is his dream taking him?
To the Featherington house, to the scene of the crime. Yes.
It's tied up with the loss of her, the guilt that he feels, the damage that he fears has done to her, that they just can't get past.
They can't escape from that moment.
Yeah.
So they have to go back and rewrite it. They have to go back and change it.
What if in this particular dream, he says something along the lines of, like, I love you or whatever, and she goes, but I thought you'd never court me or something like that. Like, he's, like, reliving what he said to her. Like, she's repeating it. Yeah.
Maybe they almost get together
Yeah.
and she says something that just fractures him.
What if he says, like, I love you, and then she says something like, this is nothing but a wild fantasy. Wake up.
Wake up. Do you think then, so he wakes up, right? He is confused. Once again, he can't escape reliving this moment. Do you think he's going to get up, window pens all upset, in the window during the day? He wakes up, is Unicolin for the day.
Reads the issue of Lady Whistledown, gets even more upset.
Whatever she's written about.
Maybe she doesn't show up to their lesson that day or something else happens, doesn't get to see her and has to seek her out.
And where does he go?
Back to the Featherington Garden, to the scene of the crime, to the scene of his dream, to make the dream a reality.
Yeah.
I think this is the fantasy version. I think that's the real version. But we've wondered why he looked so undone in that real sequence, the moonlight sequence.
Yeah.
And it's because if this is what he's been
Living all day.
like trapped in and agonized by living all day, and he's still in that frame of mind from the dream, and so he arrives, and in the moonlight clip that we've had before, Penelope doesn't look like this, where she's like taken aback but like it's like bewildered. She looked upset. And so if he's coming around with his like crazed brain from reliving this all day, completely takes her by surprise because she isn't in the same mindset that he is, you can understand why she gets so upset. And then if that is the moment that they kiss.
To revisit Unicolin for a second, we zoomed in like many other fans did on the copy of Lady Whistledown that we saw in the teaser for the trailer yesterday. And Adjoa had the closest shot of the issue of Lady Whistledown, but we were able to make out a few words that kind of tie into this idea. But Obson, I think that it says something like that she had to consult the help of Mr. Colin Bridgerton. And while we know Miss Featherington's marital prospects were, and I'm assuming it just means like dismal, we can't really make up much after that. But this could be potentially that issue where Penelope's kind of dismissing Colin's attention in Lady Whistledown to kind of drive a wedge between them.
That Colin's holding.
Yes, that he is holding potentially in the Unicolin scene. Yes. And this might be her explaining their recent closeness so that people don't think they're actually courting. And that just frustrates him even further because he's just woken up from this dream where he realizes that's all he really wants.
It's just to be close with her, with no one else around.
Yeah.
And because we've seen throughout this trailer is there are so many times, and in the stills, there was another still from the market that we saw where they're constantly together in public.
Yeah.
He's constantly by her side. And it makes sense that she needs to clarify the position a little bit. Guys, I think we've done it.
Yeah.
What I'd like to ask you all is, was there anything that took you by surprise? Just tell me what surprised you, what has really clawed its way into your heart, And now you can't imagine life without. Lecky, let's start with you.
I now cannot imagine life without a moment where we see Colin trying to climb up into a hot air balloon as it's sailing away. Please. Need it, please.
Beans, how are you feeling? Anything that you really love? Anything that you're really surprised by?
Shocked by the hot air balloon. I mean, I talked about it.
That's all we could talk about.
I could talk about that like
balloon all day.
Second clip all day. Shocked. Wildly shocked. When we found that they were filming at Paineshill, or Paineshill, yeah.
Yeah, Paineshill.
Ben's trying to trick you last episode.
I know. After all of these silly names, I don't know if I truly have a grasp on the English language anymore. Anyway, we went over that so much, and we had built this idea in our head that it was going to be this swan ball, all this other stuff, and you know, I was a little bit skeptical, but I did think it was going to be a ball. We all thought it was going to be like this outdoor ball, and it's just so wildly different than what we ever imagined.
Yeah, none of us imagined that the stage was for a massive fucking hot air balloon, but I am glad to be wrong, because that's going to be amazing.
Thrilled to be wrong.
It's going to be so fun. I think in general, I'm just it hits me every time we get a new still, every time we see more about the season come out, that this season is just so extravagant and extraordinary, and there's just so much happening. The trailer is usually an indication of heavily the first 2 episodes, and so the story is really moving quite fast. So yeah, that was the biggest thing I was surprised of. I mean, as you guys know, I predicted a lot of the things that we ended up seeing in the trailer, so
I think we get a lot of episode 3 and 4 here, though.
We do.
Yeah.
Obviously, as well, I think this is pretty much all part 1.
Yeah.
In terms of, we always expected it would be part 1, but I think maybe there might be like a straight establishing shot, but I think this is straight up part 1, which means, guys, we can do all this all over again.
I know.
Veg, what were you surprised and shocked by?
I think I was really holding on to the hope, I think, as my own friendship trauma, that Cressida and Eloise would not become friends. But I shouldn't be surprised, because I should believe every single thing that Beans predicts.
No, I've been wrong. I've definitely been wrong.
You've been right more often than you've been wrong, I think.
Yeah.
I suppose what's new to us, though, is the nuance of her story.
Yes.
That was really surprising, what we heard in the Vanity article.
I'm excited by that they've given her these additional layers.
It's just more depth, isn't it?
More nuance, yeah.
And the good moment, what I'm obsessing over is the fact that there's going to be a dream. I didn't know how much, I've talked about it before, but I don't know.
Excited.
I didn't know how much my heart wanted it until I saw him sit up in bed gasping. I was like, oh my God, it's happening. Because I started liking Polin because of dreams.
Yeah.
I fancied a guy at my school after I had a dream that I kissed him. It's a real thing, guys, and I can't believe it's happening.
Full circle for you. Dream brought you here.
Yeah.
I also just want to say, in this trailer alone, we have already seen so much more of Colin. and his acting and everything. And I know I mentioned it before, and we have always talked up Luke Newton and how subtle of an actor is and how expressive he is in his face, and so oftentimes people miss that because he's not extravagant and over the top.
He's not being the main character,
right? But he's not a big personality like Benedict or Antony. They have very defined roles, and Colin has been this sort of lost puppy, sort of figuring out what he wants in his life. And I really think this trailer too is also going to help people who maybe weren't sold on Colin and really see just how much Luke has perfected the longing glance, the subtle glance, the expressiveness of his eyes.
You guys want to give a BAFTA to Lord Five for raising his fucking martini. I want to give a BAFTA to Luke Newton for the subtle shake of his head when he's looking at Penelope with Devlin. Are you kidding me?
The glimmer of tear in the arch scene, the intensity of his face, all of it, just the way that he holds himself is really well done. And I just think he is excelling, and I'm so excited.
The way he expresses his subconscious feelings physically, just with that subtle shake of his head that no one else might notice, that he himself probably doesn't even notice. He's just acting. Yes, love it.
But with that being said, Ovs, What about you? What
Yes.
surprised you? What are you excited about?
How are you? No.
First of all, as someone who's dealt with a lot of sleep paralysis recently, I disagree. I've not been enjoying the dreams in my life, but I'll happily enjoy Colin's. That's absolutely fine. You know what? It's one of those things where I think when you watch it the first few times, you're so like drawn by like Penelope's story because it's like that, you know, that seems to be like she's in the middle of all these different conflicts with Debbling and such. But what I think when you've watched it as many fucking hundreds of times as we have now,
I know.
Jesus Christ, it's that journey. It is Colin's story.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say.
And I think what I love so much about that is, like you say, like you've got a character who hasn't been able to like have that awareness, and he isn't his brother. He isn't Benedict. He's not going to have love fall on him in a flash of light, which would be an amazing piece of acting to see that immediate moment take over someone. But you know, we've had a character who thought he was in love. So you've got an actor who portrayed a character who thought he was in love, but actually wasn't in love because he knew that when he was in love, that would be a whole different journey. And what you're seeing now is those pieces really falling into place for Colin, and it's the grappling. And it's so interesting because that's an incredibly internal emotional struggle to undergo, which is what you have in the book. It's a very different setup, but he's very internalized in his issues in the book. It isn't necessarily there's like this big world obstacle in between them in like the first few chapters. It's him trying to get his head around his own emotions, and to portray that on screen is so difficult. And to have moments like this, it's just gorgeously told for his character. And then I think obviously what I just can't get past is that moment of them two laughing, because that's the heart of the story.
Yes.
That's why we've been here from day one, and it's that journey.
It's what a Barb.
What a Barb.
I want to add on to your thoughts were like, because viewers were definitely concerned about this season mostly focusing on Penelope rather than Colin, and I think the trailer itself dispels that completely. Like, we get so many shots of Colin just like reacting and being part of this, and there's still so much more to tell about his character, and so I think that this trailer hopefully quells some of those fears. The whole time I was watching it, there was no question that it was about him. You know, he is the center of attention. And so it's really exciting to see that. And I was just thinking about this, like, we're going to see his name on that tree.
I've been dreaming about it.
Like, so soon. I'm freaking out. But yeah, it just, I don't know why, but it just really felt like Luke Newton as Colin Bridgerton was specifically so center in this trailer as well. Like, we have those things with Penn, but it felt like Luke was kind of like the driving force for a lot of those things happening, and I'm just very excited.
It's like Penelope is featured a lot in the trailer, but I almost feel like she's not passive in any way, because she's like the least passive character you can have, but she seems in a lot of those scenes so caught up and doesn't really know what to do, or because she's caught between her struggle, which is the right thing to do for her, like the heart versus the mind, whereas he, in this small trailer, which is just a part one, you get him from the swaggery pirate, and you see the journey that he's undergone just in those clips.
You can see his emotional beats. You can see how he's feeling. And I think what we're seeing is, like you mentioned this earlier, specifically in the scene where he cuts his hand, we are seeing how how Colin sees Penelope, Jesus Christ. And we are seeing how he is reacting to her, rather than the past two seasons, Penelope seeing Colin and her feelings towards him. It's like a shift in storytelling, because I feel
it's a flip on the dynamic completely.
Yes, I feel like we are reacting to Penn as Colin is reacting to Penn. Like, it's you know, it's that kind of thing. Because if you notice in some of the shots, the shot is directed down towards Penelope.
Yes, it's his perspective.
His eyes are on her.
Whereas in the past two seasons, when they're speaking to each other, it's always Penn looking up at Colin, even when he's speaking. So it's a complete perspective shift. And
you know, I think that captures it so perfectly, and it reminds me of the very first Polin moment you ever have, pretty much, where Penn is watching him dance. As an audience, we see him dance, and we don't get any insight into his character in that moment. He's just like dancing. He's in the middle of something. Whereas when the focus is on Penn, you know, the butterfly dress, you see
the internal,
interiority, of her character. You see her world and her mind, and I feel like that's the reverse. Is we spend a lot of the trailer watching Penelope, and watching her move through scenes. but we get to see the flip of Colin's interiority and his world and his mind.
Yeah.
It is what Nick described recently,
And this TV show is called Bridgerton.
yeah, it's his story, his journey that he's going on with Pen, of course, because we're always united in it. But guys, we've been on the phone for so long.
I know.
Do you know what? I just realised that where you are, Lucky, it's not even 11 a.m.
Oh my God.
No.
And you've already like put in like a 6-hour shift.
Yeah, it's been a long day.
So many thoughts. But the day is finally here. I can't even believe we finally got to the trailer day. An amazing time. Let us know all your thoughts. I'm sure you're all spiraling through. I'm sure you're all floating high in the sky with Colin in his little balloon. But we will be back soon. We'll be back for a book reread.
On Sunday. We have an episode coming out on Sunday. Hopefully we'll get this one to you before that. But we'll see how it goes.
You guys were going to be chock full of content up to the day that the show comes out.
In the meantime, where can everyone find us, Lex?
You can find us at What a Barb Pod on Instagram and TikTok.
And our podcasts are always released on podcast platforms and also in video format with lots of lovely collages on YouTube.
And Beans, on this very, very special day, sing us out.
Ave Maria. Ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da, ba-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da, ba-da-dee-doo-doo-dee-doo-dee-doo, brr, brr, brr. Das violin. Do 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 do. Do 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 do.